I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, November 13th, 2024 Washington Township Regular School Board meeting. And for the record, I want to show that there are 3 board members present and 2 virtually. Mr. Fensel and Mrs. George Davis are calling in virtually. So I will call the roll as we do voting later on this meeting. So with that being said, first I'd like to everybody, let's join in for the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, if you would bear with me for a minute, we'd like to offer a moment of silence. We've lost a couple of people for our district. One is a Northview Front Desk Administrative Assistant, Karen Levenhagen. Sorry about that. And we also lost a Norris student recently who passed away. So I'd like it if you could just bear with us in a moment of silence for those folks. Thank you very much. Now, the first item on our agenda is board recognitions. Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, President Turner, Dr. Woodson, members of the board. Good evening, Washington Township School community. We have a couple recognitions this evening. I'll start off with a congratulations to Mr. Andrew Rice. Mr. Rice, if you'll join us. Mr. Rice is our automotive service technology instructor at JEL. He is one of 25 winners of the 2024 Harbor Freight Tools for Schools Prize for Teaching Excellence. To honor Mr. Rice for this achievement, Harbor Freight had a surprise award ceremony at J. Everett Light Career Center on Tuesday, October 16th. The prize is the flagship program of Harbor Freight Tools for Schools. In its 8th year, the prize is designed to shine a light on excellent skilled trades teachers and programs and bring attention and respect to this vital field. And the prize comes with a cash award of $50,000.
Very much, everyone.
JEL Automotive Services Program will receive 70% and Mr. Rice will receive 30%. So again, congratulations, Mr. Rice. We are thrilled to share in this amazing achievement with you.
Oh, I don't have to do this. No, you're fine.
And then last, but certainly not least, congratulations to President Bill Turner. President Turner was recently named the recipient of the 2024 Benjamin Elijah Mays Lifetime Achievement Award by the Council of Urban Boards of Education. He was recognized at the CUBE conference back in October. It was an honor for us to nominate him for this award for an exceptional 14 years of board service. The Benjamin Elijah Mays Lifetime Achievement Award annually recognizes one individual nationally who has demonstrated a longstanding commitment to the educational needs of urban school children through their service as a local school board member. The award is named for Benjamin Elijah Mays, who joined the Atlanta Board of Education in 1969 and served as its president from 1970 to 1981. During his tenure on the board, Mays worked tirelessly to provide equal educational opportunities for children. He is also remembered for his outstanding leadership and service as a scholar, teacher, minister, mentor, author, and civil rights activist. Congratulations again, President Turner. We are extremely grateful for all your dedication and hard work over the years for our schools, our students, and our entire Washington Township school community. Thank you again. Congratulations.
Yay.
And that concludes board recognitions this evening. I'll turn it back over to you, President Turner.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Next item on the agenda is school spotlight, and it's North Central High School, Mr. Rentz.
All right, let's wait until the presentation gets up. All right, thank you. President Turner, Dr. Woodson, members of the board, it's a pleasure to be here today to highlight some great accomplishments and discuss our journey at North Central High School so far this year. Before I get into the presentation, while this is a North Central High School spotlight, I have to shine light on my big brother and big sister at JEL and True North, because we can't do what we do at North Central without JEL and True North. So Mr. Funk and Ms. Zybert, thank you for being here, and thank you for everything you do for us. I want to talk about some points of pride. First, from staff, I want to highlight our Indianapolis African American Quality of Life Initiative Award winners, and really they've completed a journey through this process, and we've had several members of our staff go through a very intensive 18-month program to obtain either an administrative license or a teaching license. And so it's a very rigorous process, but Asia Bass, Michelle Berry, Ed McNeil, and Tim Clark have all gone through that process, and we are proud of them. So those are some things that we're proud of, as well as Jocelyn Sisson. We were just informed this week that she will be presented the Friend of the Gifted Award from the Indiana Association for the Gifted, and that's going to happen December 2nd. So we're proud of her. She didn't make the presentation, but she did let me know that this week. Students that we want to highlight. We had 2 Indy Star students back-to-back, Anna Gruninger and Kayla Robinson. That's a statewide recognition that they were able to win, and so we're proud of them. We've had students obtain scholarships through our AVID program to the tune of $2,057,380, and that is of today. Our seniors are raking in scholarship monies and over $2 million, so we're proud of them. We recognized 22 students that were National Merit finalists and National Recognition Awardees, recipients earlier this fall, and we're proud of them as well. We took 29 students to Nashville for fall break for an HBCU tour. They visited Meharry Medical College, Fisk University, Vanderbilt University, and Tennessee State University. Back in the spring, we took 8 students to Hampton University, Norfolk State University, Elizabeth Clay University, North Carolina Central University, and North Carolina A&T University. We plan on taking about 30 to 35 students next spring on a spring break college tour to DC, and we're excited about that. We just are getting plans underway. I want to highlight Carla Sanford, Miss Hannah Pack, and Mr. Darian Grays for being our sponsors for that trip. Miss Gates took 49 students to the HBCU Scholarship Fair at Crispus Attucks, a very well-attended and a highly sought-after conference and tour. We had students get accepted to college on site that day, and you'll meet one of them here in a few minutes. But we were excited and proud of that. Want to highlight our athletic program. 6 out of the 8 championships for the MIC came home to North Central this fall, and so want to highlight, boys tennis, girls cross country, boys cross country, girls golf, girls soccer, girls volleyball. They all brought home MIC championships this fall. Everybody likes to talk about football, but we like to talk about it all. So excited for those athletes. Our school has gained some recognition as well. The IHSA has announced and will be hosting the state track and field finals at North Central High School next spring. That's going to be on the same weekend. We will host the state tennis meet for our girls. So it'll be a busy week at North Central, but we're happy to highlight our campus and our facilities for the entire state. The track and field state finals have typically been held at IU on their facilities. So for them to bring that championship to us tells us that we're on par with Division I colleges like IU. And so we're proud of those, proud of that. We gained $29,000 through our modern apprenticeship program. That is a work-based learning partnership. Ms. Charlene Williams and Christy Korn do a fantastic job heading that up for us. So $29,000 coming back to our school for our hard work and for our students' hard work in work-based learning. We hosted the Rachel's Challenge this fall, which is a really popular and renowned program for our students to talk about kindness. And the fruits of that is a Friends of Rachel club that has been started to exude and to exhibit kindness throughout our school campus. So we're excited to have them do some really exciting things from that presentation. Our Performing Arts Department put on Sister Act. Many of you in the audience came to and see that and saw that play, that musical. We were excited about that. And we're just proud of so much at North Central right now. Just wanted to highlight just a few. Moving into equitable achievement, I want to talk about some of the things we're doing on the academic front. This comes from our school improvement plan, but we have worked to utilize admin pathways. This is an opportunity for us to meet the needs of students who are credit deficient. They're able to work at their own pace and really bring in students in the fold that typically have not found much success in the traditional method of school. So admin has worked really well for us. We are having an ongoing work to take advantage of some opportunities that the State Department of Education are giving us in the way of locally created pathways. You'll see that our ENL Performing Arts and Journalism program will be offering creative ways for students to go through this process. And for every student who goes through, the Perkins Funds will reimburse us and award us with monies for all those students that go through that program. Our Indiana College Core opportunity is one that students can take classes at North Central High School and they can transfer to any state college. This effort has been going on for a while, but we've been refining our processes and making sure that we are creative in the ways that we are offering that to our students. It means money in the pockets of our parents because they don't have to pay what they would have to pay if the students were on the college campuses. We are excited for a targeted approach to broadening our reach in higher level classes to our students through our AP, IB, and ACP courses, really targeting students and going after the representation of our students and not just serving a niche, but trying to make that something that's school-wide. We also are going to be providing space for our 16A students to work over at True North. This is a touch point for students who have made poor decisions behaviorally. We don't want them to be divorced from our school community. This opportunity gives them a touch point person while they're out so they can help them with their studies. The message there is even though you're having this consequence, you still belong to us. And when you come back, we want you to be folded right back into our community. Our grade level support teams look at students in our MTSS process, and they're looking at cohorts of students each week to make sure that they are on progress to graduate. We don't want any surprises, and so this process helps us do that. Our school gets better as adults get better, and so we are making sure that our professional development and our professional learning is robust and representative of what the achievement that we want our students to have. We're working specifically on total participation techniques, and some of our executive leadership were in our building this week and they were able to witness that firsthand. And so we want to inspect what we expect there, and we want to have very fine-tuned strategies on how to make sure we get there. We're looking to increase our offerings in our social emotional learning through our homeroom. We've developed a committee to help us finish that work and make sure that it's embedded in our homeroom classes. And so we're excited about that. We have a multi-layer tier of support, again, through our grade level support teams, where they are discussing student progress on a weekly basis. When students are out, we are asking that each student go through a repair conference or a reentry conference with their assistant principal if they've been out for suspension or if they've been sent home to the ones who love them the most. We want them to come back and meet with us before they get back in the classroom, again, to send that message that you belong to us. I want to highlight our committee work. This is something that we've resurrected this year. We have an SEL committee, a social committee, an equity committee, access and opportunity committee, a FACES community that's really working closely with our PTO, attendance committee, and a student recognition committee, all teacher-led committees and that are putting their hands to the plow and doing above and beyond to make North Central a better place. I want to talk about some achievement data, some data that shows us that we're on the right path. We have seen an 8% growth in our pass rate for Algebra 1 in Term 1. So the thought there is if more students are passing Algebra 1, then hopefully they'll pass the SAT when it's time for them to take it. So that's something that we're looking at on a regular basis to make sure that more students are being successful in the courses so they can do better on the exams. We have implemented diagnostic exam through ExactPath to determine where our students are in our math classes, particularly our algebra courses. Again, no surprises. We want to have data to guarantee success and not just wait until that SAT to see how students are going to do. We want to be seeing that on an ongoing basis so we can make interventions along the way for them. You're going to hear a little bit more about this in Dr. Pettigrew's presentation, but we also have data around our discipline that we're proud of. We have decreased out-of-school suspensions by 45% and expulsions by 75% year to date. And that's just a testament to the hard work our teachers are doing to build relationships. That doesn't happen on accident. And so we're really proud of that. We'll get to that deeper later on tonight. So yeah, that's a little bit of what we've been doing at 1801 for the first few months of school. Want to recognize a few individuals that are here with us today. Our Social Justice Award recipient today is the president of North Central's Black Student Union. The Black Student Union is an organization, an affinity space that's open to all students, but really focuses on giving our students of color a sense of home, discuss topics that are important to our students. Our leader for Black Student Union is Maria Brookins, and she's here tonight. She's a 3.7 GPA, 4 dual credit classes. She's an entrepreneur, was accepted to Tennessee State, and wants to study wants to be a pediatric therapist in the future. And she's here receiving our Social Justice Award tonight. Maria's mom and dad are here too. Will you wave at us, Ms. Brookins, Mr. Brookins? Thank you for being here. Our above and beyond parent recognition. I want to ask Coach Diata to come up here and help me. He made a strong plea. President Turner got this a few weeks ago, and I said, let's fold it into this presentation. I'm going to let you honor our parents for today.
Oh. All right, tonight I have the pleasure, first of all, good evening to everyone. So it's an honor and a pleasure to come here and attend this meeting and also recognize two exceptional parents, Michael and Erika Gruninger from soccer. They have been parents at North Central for a total, I think, of 7 years under my tenure as the head coach. So they sent 3 kids here at North Central. They have been responsible for, I'm trying to read here. The eyes are tired. But anyway, responsible for during 4 years, for 3 or 4 years, Erika has been the Booster Club president and has been doing heavy lifting, you know, on stage and in the backstage, being a great advocate for students, athletes, coaches, overall. And she has been doing that with Michael, and they have sent us 3 wonderful kids. Anna Gruninger, Michael Gruninger, and Sophia. Sophia and Anna have both played soccer and have been captains for the North Central Women team. So Anna was voted Indy Star Student of the Week a few weeks ago. What Erika has done with Michael is to be relentlessly looking for solutions. There are people who don't see problems, they see solutions. And we look good. As coaches, these girls make us look great. But these parents also make us look great. Wherever we go, we are admired by the way we look, you know, the way we dress, the way we conduct ourselves. That's happening because some people have been shaping these kids. When they come, we don't have much to do. So really, we should be the one thanking them because they make us look great. And Erika, I cannot thank her enough because anytime something was in the horizon, she would get there, find solution before even it gets to us. She has done way more than what she was called for, and we really appreciate that. I was joking the other day saying, can you adopt another girl so that you can stay? So that's what they have been doing, and they have done a great job with the Paul Logan Foundation organizing us every year around Labor Day, collecting, raising money, funds to help athletes at North Central who want to participate but don't always have the means. So that's just one of the things that she has been doing. Great advocate, great partner of school, make us really proud to be in this district and be part of this. And I wanted to make sure that we hear that because this district has great parents who are doing a wonderful job, and that needs to be highlighted.
Okay.
Michael and Erika Gruninger.
Thank you.
All right, and lastly, our supportive partnership recognition goes to Indie Love on a Leash. We have some very special guests with us that I want to bring up. Jill and Coco, Carol Robinson and Rico, Mary Ann is here. Yeah, we know Jack and Rico don't get along, so we didn't.
We're central today. He's ready to go home. Oh, aren't they cute?
Is Janice and Brian here? Very good. Want to give a big shout out to Love on a Leash. Miss Shannon is here as well. She works really closely to them, and we just appreciate what they do for us. They come weekly and help our students in a lot of ways. This is why Jack couldn't come today.
Thank Early today, 31. Oh. All right. Perfect. You can just count right here. Meeting. Yeah. Nice.
Thank you.
Next, thank you very much, Mr. Rent. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's announcements. Dr. Woodson.
Thank you, President Turner. As you know, we are about 75% completion with all of our construction projects, which is a really exciting space to be in. But the entire update from our construction leadership team is in your board docs, along with an updated total construction budget for your review. We also have the continued board signups for all of our school visits. Thank you to the board members who were able to attend the North Central visit on Monday and construction tour. And then I included an article from Chalkbeat that highlighted some of our students and staff. And last on my announcement list, I spent time in classrooms yesterday. I just cleared the schedule and went because it's hard to do sometimes. And then today I was invited to speak to a group of students at North Central. And I just wanted to share, I know you feel it when you go on the school visits. I feel it every time I go into schools. We have amazing staff and students in Washington Township schools. And so I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate all of our students who come to school every single day amidst a wide range of complexities and challenges, including our staff who give wraparound supports to them so that they are successful. So just proud to be a superintendent of such an amazing school district.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Now comes the time in our meeting for comments from the public. If there are members of the public, now's your chance to come to the podium to speak. One of the things that I did not mention earlier is we typically, or we now would like folks to sign in when they come in, and I did not mention that earlier. So if you did not sign in, please sign in when you're done so that we have record of who you are. The other piece just to throw up here for you is that the duration is 3 minutes per person to speak. The board members will not respond to your, either if you have questions or requests. Doesn't mean we won't respond as a district. We just don't do it during this time of the meeting. And no participant may speak on the same topic more than once until everyone has been heard. When you come to the podium, which you are, please state your name and your address, and then we will start the process. So thank you.
My name is Matt Winston. I live at 332 East 91st Street. And I am the president of the College Commons Neighborhood Association, which is located between 91st Street and 96th Street, and for Pennsylvania to College Avenue. And I'm here to thank the board for using common sense and redistricting Northview Middle School to include our neighborhood, which is located across the street from the new Northview Middle School from its previous districting, sending our students across the district to Eastwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Erin Smith. My address is 819 Forest Boulevard South Drive. And I'm representing the neighborhood of Wyncombe. We are a proud Willow Lake District family that has spent many hours volunteering for the PTO and supporting the DLI program that we richly enjoy and love so much. We're speaking out, hoping that the board will take up interest in maybe rethinking the redistricting of our area and adjacent areas. We have many people who move into the district for this program, and it's continued busing for this program to succeed over there at Willow Lake. And we want to continue to improve the diversity there with the current boundaries that are in place, and without the busing that will be available to potentially people coming in. I know there's a lot of concern that there will be an out of district or in district transfer rate that will take up for this. However, there's many in our neighborhood who have little ones who have moved in, hoping that they would be in this program, and are now told that will be an in district transfer with no busing potentially. So this is a big concern for people who moved into our district for this program. We enjoy the program very, very much, and we hope that the board will look at this. I did send an email to everyone on the board today, and including the new incoming superintendent as well. Please look at it. There's a lot of concerns in there and even some suggestions that might be beneficial to more people. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next.
Hi there. I'm speaking on the same topic. So did you say I need to let others go?
No. Just once you speak on the topic, let everybody else speak before you come back. Yes.
All right. Well, my name is Elizabeth Hathaway, and I live at 720 East 81st Street. So I'm also in the Windcomb neighborhood, and was just wanting to voice some of my concerns with the redistricting plan as well. I appreciated that the plan kind of outlined why the changes were being made and what rationale went into things. On a personal level, so my family moved to Windcomb less than a year ago, specifically because of being in Boundary for the DLI program. So I have a third grader at Willow Lake and a kindergartner, both in the DLI program. Previously, my son had been at a Spanish immersion program through IPS. But we had felt like a weakness. I mean, overall, we had a positive experience with IPS, but I think a weakness for us had been that on our street, every child went to a different school, and we really wanted to have more of a neighborhood school feel. So we had sought out Windcomb because we were in Boundary for DLI. So on a personal level, I'm disappointed, but I recognize that's not what's driving the decision. In terms of things that are more broadly applicable, I wanted to comment the new boundaries for Willow Lake are so small. They struck me as likely very socioeconomically homogeneous. And I worried about how that aligned with the diversity goals that were stated. And I also worry that with those small boundaries, there would be a socioeconomic disparity between the DLI program and the non-DLI classes. I also wanted to clarify, I couldn't tell from the slides long-term, it sounded like the children from Windcomb or other areas still in DLI would be grandfathered in for busing. I could not tell whether that would continue through middle school because that programming does not exist yet. But if the busing would not be provided, I worry about the stability of the DLI program long-term as it's trying to expand into the middle school, because we would be looking at having one child at elementary school and one child at middle school with much later start time when we have our in Boundary middle school right up the street. I think that would be, myself and my husband work, and that would be very, very challenging. I just worry about the DLI program stability in the later grades. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Leah Sudner. I live at 1544 McCullough Court, and I'm coming at this from the middle school perspective. Sorry. I have current 7th grade students at Northview Middle School, and adolescence is a tricky time. After 3 different elementary schools, we were already redistricted once in elementary. And I feel like they've really made some strong bonds with music teachers, with coaches, finally making some friends. And I'm really stressing out over feeling they would be in 4 buildings in 4 years. Old Northview, new Northview, move to West Lane, and then North Central. And I think that's really asking a lot for kids coming out of COVID and building construction and all that disruption in their life that they've already had. Yeah, they're proud to be at Northview. They hear Mr. Hakeem say every day, it's a great day to be a Falcon. They'd like to finish middle school at Northview. So I would like to see the 8th graders be able to be grandfathered into staying into their current school. If you can't do that, I would like for us to at least be able to apply for limited choice. I know there's a lot of out-of-district students, and I think I'm asking that maybe the in-district students be given consideration over the kids coming from out of district. Sorry. I did also write it all down. I'm just, yeah, very nervous to stand up and speak, but I have to speak up for my boys for eighth grade next year. So, did I miss anything?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Fincher, neighbor, 1607 McCullough Court, 79th and Dinge area. So a lot of the same points. The They said it's 3%, and then, you know, it's just 1 year. Our kids are going into 8th grade next year. So I'm like, well, it's just 3%. We fought with this referendum to get the schools and everything. And now I feel like there's limited choice. There's a lot of students coming in from IPS and Broad Ripple and everything, and I understand that. But now our kids are we going to be able to have limited choice to stay where they're at, Northview? We want to finish it out. It's just 3%, and yeah, in the email it was sent out to everybody, or that, well, in 8th grade they had some more opportunity to build friendships and things. Yeah, but it can also be very devastating. And, you know, change is about life. You know, life is about change. So we get that. But that 3%, why can't there be a survey sent out to ask who was willing to go from Northview in that new districting that you're proposing? Who was willing to go, be on the bus, and who is willing to drive their kids? So a big handful of us are willing to drive our kids. We don't need the bus. And we have that opportunity to see what that survey shows, or who's willing to just use the bus and go to West Lane. So same, our kids are very involved in the musicals and sports and the teachers and volleyball, and they don't have the musicals, I don't believe, at West Lane. So I would probably have to drive her, keep her doing that. But I think it is a big deal. At 3%, it's just 3%, but it's a big deal. Thank you.
No, thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Ann Williamson Wolf, 7738 Harcourt Springs Drive. And my daughter's a 6th grader at Northview, and we're in the same boat. We transferred to Willow the last time redistricting happened, pulling my then 5th grader out of the school she'd been going to since kindergarten. Her sister had just finished kindergarten, and she was really looking forward to going to Northview with her sister, or not with her, I mean, and following in the steps of her sister Craham, all kinds of great stories. She was looking forward to having some of the same teachers. I know it's not always consistent because staff turnover, but she was really looking forward to it. She's making new friends, and she was really nervous about starting middle school, of making sure the classes were done. We did 2 tours of the school to make sure that she was confident. And now you guys want to rip her out of that school, send her to a different school that she's never set foot in. Yeah, it may technically be a little bit closer, but all of her friends are right now at Northview. So now, and they've talked about 8th graders maybe grandfathering in, but what about the current 6th graders who again, with redistricting, when Willow first opened, now they're getting redistricted again. So that's 2 redistrictings before they start high school, that they're not getting comparative educations to their siblings because they're going to different schools from their siblings. And they're going to have to start over and make new friends. Yes, they'll have some leftover friends from Willow, but they're making middle school friends. And they're going to have to relearn a whole new building at a time where they're very insecure. And to make them start over again in a new strange environment where they don't know. And we know the staff at Northview, that Mr. Hakeem is physically present every morning. We know the band director because, again, her sister was there. Her sister's a sophomore right now, so she wants to follow in her sister's footsteps, and it's not fair to deny. Again, that 3% is all well and good unless you're part of that 3% being told that you can't have what your older siblings had.
Thank you. And just as a FYI for those that may not have gone through our entire agenda for tonight, I know it's the last item, but this topic is the last item under information items tonight. So if you can stick around, be a good time to hear more information on that. Is that all members of the public that would like to speak? Yep.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Stocks. I live at 7759 Park North Court. I have a 7th grader at Northview, so she would be redistricted to West Lane next year. And I read the slideshow. I understood the reasons for the redistricting, and I agree with a lot of them. However, my child was districted to Northview to begin her middle school career, and that's where she would like to finish it. She's gotten to know the teachers, and the teachers have gotten to know her. She's made friends. She plays sports. She is looking forward to the Washington, D.C. trip with her 8th grade classmates. She's looking forward to the 8th grade dance. She's looking forward to a lot of things that I don't think are being, the little things that I don't think are getting taken into account when people are considering just the 3% of the students that are affected. While it's only 3% affected, their middle school career will look a lot different than the rest of their peers. So only 3% of kids will have a different middle school experience. And that doesn't really seem fair. Again, I understand the redistricting needs, but I don't understand why our 8th graders wouldn't be grandfathered in. And if that's not, and 5th graders, and if that's not possible, why limited choice would be taken away at the same time you're doing the redistricting. Perhaps it could happen later that limited choice is taken away. Perhaps it could happen, you let them know that the boundaries are going to get changed, get them used to the new boundaries, and then take away limited choice. But to do it all at once seems like you're taking away the freedom of our kids' choice of an education. And that doesn't really seem fair. And that's what's not sitting well with me, not the redistricting, but the ripping away the choice from our students. So I just hope that that gets taken into account.
Thank you.
My name is Renee McIntyre, and I live at 7872 Marquise Lane. And I have a granddaughter that goes to North. She's been at Northview since the 6th grade. I'm very emotional about this. The teenage years are sensitive years. She's been there since 6th grade. She knows the teachers, she's in choir, she's in different sports and different programs. And I feel that the 8th graders, ones going into the 8th grade, they should, like I said, should be grandfathered into staying at this Northview, because, like I said, the teenage years are just sensitive years. I don't want to disrupt their lives. They just need to have something secure and be able to be feel protected and just know that they are where they started the school at. And I feel that the redistricting them right at this time wouldn't be good for them. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Danielle. I live at 1547 McCullough Court, and I'm here to support my neighbors. I've had 3 children who go through Harcourt. I mean, not Harcourt, I'm sorry. That lets you know I'm from Washington Township.
That's exactly ridiculous. Way back.
I was born and raised here, Washington Township. I went through it. I have a daughter who's at IU, went through through Washington Township. I have an 8th grader at Northview. And I do have a 5th grader at Willow Lake, and she's the first of the DLI that started. So no one can tell me what is going on as far as what middle school, but I've heard it is going to be West Lane, which if that's what it has to be, that's what it has to be. But I'm here to advocate for the 7th graders, the 6th graders, that they have a choice. We're taxpayers, we pay good taxes in Washington Township. And I just feel like we should have the first choice of our kids staying and where they want to go. And if we're able to bus them or transport them, I feel like we should have that choice.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will move on to the next agenda item. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, President Turner, Dr. Woodson, members of the board. I recommend that you approve the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. The consent agenda includes approval of the minutes of the October 16th, 2024 board meeting and the October 16, 2024 special meeting and the memorandum of the November 6, 2024 executive session. Also seeking approval of 2 payroll calculation summary reports, a claims docket in the amount of $11,460,096.60, 1 special personnel item in accordance with Indiana Code 20-26-5-11.2, a human resources report containing for classified personnel 19 new hires, numbers 110 through 128, 17 resignations, numbers 50 through 66, 1 retirement, number 5, 3 leaves, numbers 1 through 3. And then for certified personnel, that's 7 new appointments, numbers 88 through 94, 2 resignations, number 169 and 170, and then 5 maternity, child rearing adoptions, numbers 34 through 38. There is 1 non-competitive grant this evening. That's the Simon Youth Foundation Capacity Building Grant. That's in the amount of $5,500, and 1 donation to present for board approval. And that information has been provided in your board packet for review. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions, board? Mr. Fensel or Ms. George Davis, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Fensel?
No questions. Having a little trouble there unmuting, sorry.
That's okay. Just want to make sure. Entertain a motion.
If there are no further questions, Mr. President, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented by Dr. Taylor.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. Ms. Fry?
Aye.
Ms. Korth Kruger?
Aye.
Mrs. George Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Fensel?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda are our action items. First action item is the approval of resolution to authorize supplemental pay for teachers. Dr. Kaiser.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson, President Turner, members of the board. I come to you tonight seeking your approval of a resolution to authorize supplemental pay for teachers. In November of 2023, the board approved a 2-year agreement with the Washington Township Education Association, the first time in 20 years. That agreement included a base salary increase for all eligible teachers of $2,000 and a one-time stipend to all eligible teachers in the amount of $1,000. However, that agreement also included a clause that would reopen the contract for bargaining of salary and wages for the 2024 bargaining season in the event that our ADM count of students from fall 2024 was less than 10,476 or more than 10,626 students. The ADM for fall 2024 rose to 11,160 students. So the administration and the Washington Township Education Association met recently to determine how best to use the increased funding generated by these new enrollees to recognize the hard work and the dedication of teachers in Washington Township. I am pleased to share that as a result of our collaboration, we have a resolution for teacher compensation to present for board approval this evening that is substantially more than what we agreed to last year. I'd also like to point out that this is the first time that I'm aware of that this will be approved via a board resolution, which is a testimony to the trust and the spirit of collaboration that exists between the administration and the Washington Township Education Association. I'd further like to point out that these increased raises continue a trend of strong increases for Washington Township teachers over the last 7 years. As you can see from your board documents, our teachers who have been with us over that span have seen their compensation increase by $20,000 or more in that time. And our starting teacher salary has increased by 24% in that window. We know there's been a great deal of talk about the need to increase teacher salaries in the state of Indiana, and we are proud that here in Washington Township, we are making that a reality. Therefore, I request that you approve the resolution for teacher supplemental pay in your board documents for this evening. That includes a total base salary increase of $4,000.00 for the 2024-2025 contract year for all eligible Washington Township teachers retroactively applied effective July 1st of 2024. This base salary increase equates to an approximate 6.5% increase for the average teacher salary. Additionally, eligible Washington Township teachers who are employed with Washington Township schools on the date that the stipend is paid would also receive a total one-time stipend of $1,300.00 for the 2024-25 contract year. This stipend will be prorated for part-time teachers, and payment of the stipend will be made on or before the start of Washington Township Schools' winter break. The stipend, together with the base salary increase, equates to a total compensation increase in excess of 8.5% for the average teacher. I'm pleased to share once again these base salary increases and one-time stipends come along with no increase to the cost of health, dental, or vision insurance premiums for 2025. Again, we have not seen these rates rise in the last 7 years. This concludes my presentation of the resolution, and I'm pleased to answer any questions the board may have.
Board have questions? Mr. Fensel, Mrs. George Davis?
No questions.
No questions.
I'll entertain a motion.
There are no further questions. I move that we approve the resolution to authorize supplemental as presented by Dr. Kaiser.
I'll happily second.
Before we move to the vote, I'll just have to say that because this is the one time, even though it's supplemental, that I typically abstain from voting since my wife's in the district, teaches in the district, but that does not mean I don't approve of it. So I will call the vote. Ms. Fry,
Aye.
Mrs. Horst Kruger,
Aye.
Mrs. George Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Fensel,
Aye.
and then I abstain. So the motion carries 4 ayes and 1 abstention. So the motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is another resolution, the approval of resolution for 2024-2025 administrator and classified staff compensation. It says Dr. Kaiser, but it's not as this is red.
Our Assistant Director of Human Resources, Ms. Shaw.
Yes, exactly.
Good evening. Dr. Woodson, President Turner, and members of the board, to you this evening seeking approval of the resolution for administrators and classified compensation. As Dr. Kaiser shared, we are proud of the work that we have done to increase the compensation for teachers over the last 7 years, and we equally are pleased to share that our administrators and classified staff have received increases in alignment with our teachers over that same life span. As you can see from the documents provided to you this evening, administrators have received increases in amounts very similar to those of teachers and classified staff who have been with the township since 2018, seen their salary or hourly rates increase by 20% over more than that span of time. We know how important these staffs are to the success and well-being of our students, and we are very proud of the work that we have done to increase compensation to our employees. Additionally, our administrators and classified staff have seen no increase in the cost of premiums for the health, dental, and vision coverage during the 7-year span, and there will not be an increase in these premiums for 2025. I'd also like to thank the board once again for our approval of our calendar and our benefit adjustments this past summer that provided paid holidays, additional retirement accounts, and increased paid time off for many classified employees that had not received them in the past. Specifically, the resolution that I bring forward for your approval tonight includes, number 1, as we've seen in the past, approval of the attached 2024-25 performance-based compensation plan for eligible certificated administrators. Number 2,
Approval of an increase of a pro rata adjusted base salary increase in an amount equal to the teacher's fixed dollar amount of $4,000 divided by those teachers' standard number of contract days, which is of 185 days, multiplied by the applicable days used to calculate the administrator's respective daily rate for the 2024-25 contract year. Approval of an increase of a pro rata adjusted one-time stipend in the amount of equal to the teacher's one-time stipend of $1,300. That would be divided also by the standard number of contract days, which is 185 days, multiplied by the applicable days used to calculate the administrator's respective daily rate for the 24-25 year. Approval of reduced pro rata adjusted base salary increases for those administrators whose annual working days were reduced for the 24-25 school year, detailed in that employee reclassification memo, which is, you should see in Exhibit B, incorporated in the paperwork that you have this evening. Approval of a 4% increase to the hourly wage rate of base salary retroactive to July 1st to all eligible classified employees. An increase to the minimum hourly rate for any classified hourly employees whose current hourly rate, is below the minimum hourly rate for their position. Number 7, approval of a one-time stipend of $500 to all eligible classified employees for the 24-25 school year. Number 8, approval of a one-time stipend of $600 to all eligible classified employees paid on the bus driver paid scale for the 24-25 school year. Number 9, approval of annual milestone bonuses to be paid in 24-25 to all eligible classified employees and administrators in the amount of $200 to all classified employees and administrators who work a regular schedule of 15 hours a week or more and who have worked in the school corporation for 5 to 9.99 consecutive years. Milestone bonuses to be paid to all eligible classified employees and administrators, the same in the amount of $400. For those who have worked from 10 to 14.99 years, in a milestone bonus to be paid to all eligible classified employees and administrators of $600 for anyone who's worked more than 15 consecutive years or more. Number 10, approval of a $2 per hour increase to the hourly wage rate of classified adult education part-time employees who do not receive the annual increases approved for the hourly classified employees that would be retroactive back to July 1st. Number 11, approval of a 3% increase to the hourly wage rate and base salary retroactive to July 1st for full-time adult ed employees who do not receive the annual increases. Number 12, approval of the attached contracts or work provisions for Mrs. Rebecca Smith, Chief Financial Officer, and Ms. Marla Palacios, Director of Transportation. Number 13, since the approved compensation package does contain one-time stipend payments for some employees, the board authorizes the school district to utilize funds from the Education Fund, Operating Referendum Fund, Operations Fund, Rainy Day Fund, and/or the appropriate grant funds in a sufficient amount for those one-time stipend payments. And then lastly, the Board of Education further adopts the administrator's fringe benefits, which is attached in Exhibit A, effective November 13th, 2024, which supersedes all prior administrative fringe benefits and superintendent's cabinet fringe benefits plan documents. This concludes my presentation of the resolution for administrator and classified compensation, and I am pleased to answer any questions the board may have for me at this time.
Board have questions? Mrs. Fentz?
No question.
Mr. Fentzel? Okay, thank
No.
you.
No,
Thank you. I do have one just minor question, just so we can have it on the record. So when you look at item 7 and item 8, the approval of one-time stipends, there's a different amount for classified in one group and then different amount for bus drivers. Can you explain what that difference is?
Yes, be happy to answer that. So our bus drivers, as you may know, a couple of years ago, we had we put the bus drivers on a driver pay scale, and it's to help us to remain competitive within the marketplace. And so every year, based on their years of service, they receive merit increases based on their years of service. Sometimes that aligns with our classified employees, other aligns with their compensation increases for that year. Sometimes it's might be a little bit about the same or a little bit lower. So this year it was slightly lower on average, and that's the reason for our additional amount of stipend that we're requesting for the bus driver pay scale.
Appreciate that. Thank you. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the resolution for the 2024-2025 administrator and classified staff compensation packages as presented by Ms. Red.
It's been moved and seconded. I'll call the vote. Ms. Fry?
Aye.
Mrs. Horst Krueger?
Aye.
Mr. Finsel?
Aye.
Mrs. George Davis?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, approval of Empower Financial as retirement plan record keeper. Dr. Kaiser.
Thank you, President Turner, Dr. Woods, and members of the board. I also come to you tonight seeking approval to engage Empower Retirement as record keeper for all Washington Township 401A, 403B, and 457B employee retirement plans. In April of 2024, this board approved the formation of an exploration committee and a contract with Procourse Fiduciary Advisors to assist the township in exploring our options for retirement plan record keepers. I'm pleased to share that this exploration was a success and the committee is ready to bring a recommendation to the board at this time. The members of that committee, as well as their recommendation, is provided in your board documentation, and I'd sincerely like to thank the members of the Washington Township Education Association, the members of our business services team, the members of our HR team, the additional classified staff representatives that assisted us on that committee in bringing their unique lens to their role for this important decision. Joining us tonight from Procourse Financial or Fiduciary Management, and which is now MJ Retirement, is Matt Fleck. Matt, who served as an important point of contact for us as we worked through this process. As you'll see in your documents, we began with an initial committee meeting to establish goals for our request for proposals document in May. RFPs were released in June, and the committee met to look at the results of those requests for proposals and to select finalists in July. Those finalists presented to the committee in August, and the committee gave their final feedback in September. Through the process, 6 different companies responded to our request for proposals, and 3 were selected for finalists that gave us presentations. The committee established 4 broad objectives, and we evaluated all potential service providers based on those 4 objectives, which were reasonable and fully transparent fees, investment flexibility, high quality plan sponsor support, and ease of interface between the plan sponsor, that's us, and the record keeper for administrative efficiency, and an excellent participant experience, including phone and internet access and support, educational assistance, and retirement planning tools. Upon final review, the committee overwhelmingly recommended that we move forward with Empower Retirement as our record keeper. While all of the factors were important, it is certainly worth highlighting that this move to Empower would reduce our current fees of approximately 1% of our assets to as low as 0.16% of our assets on our 403B plans, and a similar reduction in fees on the 401A and 457B accounts. As you can see from the documents provided, the pricing arrangement and fee schedule with Empower lowers our fees as more assets transfer onto the plan system and our decisions regarding the investments used within the plan. In order to reach this lowest possible rate, the district will pursue moving all allowable liquid assets from our current plans to Empower. If the board approves the committee recommendation this evening, we will begin working with our standing retirement committee to make final selections on all our investments and terminating agreements with current record keepers, reviewing and amending our plan documents, and scheduling the asset transfers. Once these processes are complete, information regarding the asset transfer specifics will be communicated to our staff, and our goal is to begin transferring and transfer our liquid assets to Empower on behalf of our staff in March of 2025. This concludes my presentation of the agreement, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Board, any questions? Mrs. Fry? Ms. Fry?
And I want to preface this by saying I am implying nothing here. I'm asking this question only because I feel that it's my responsibility, given the nature of what this is and the amount of money involved. In the
Absolutely.
process of the evaluations, in all of that, do you have any conflict? Did you receive anything of value from any of these vendors? Is there any conflict at all involved in you recommending this vendor?
No, and I would speak for myself and the members of the committee who are all involved. You have the details of their vote. Everybody brought a great deal of impartiality to the process. And as far as I'm aware, no one has any benefit to them for the selection or anything along those lines. Thank you.
Please understand
No,
that
appreciate it.
it's just the lawyer in me that feels like that needed to be.
No,
on
Glad to have it on record, Mrs. Fry.
I've got a question, Bill.
Go ahead, Mr. Fensel.
Yeah, Dr. Kaiser, I'm just curious if there's any training needed as our employees would move their assets over to this new platform, or is it fairly self-explanatory? And then as a second follow-up to that, do they have a local presence, or is this mostly through a 1-800 number or through the web that they would interact with Empower?
No, thank you, Mr. Fensel, and I appreciate that question. And that was part of our process as we evaluated finalists for this, and actually throughout the process is what was their level of interaction. So the short answer is it's tailored a bit to the individual. So certainly there is a phone number that is available with Empower if folks choose to do it that way and feel comfortable doing it that way. There is also a website that our staff will be able to log into and make decisions. And if they feel comfortable doing it, they will be able to do it. And then there are also local representatives of Empower that will be available to meet with staff one-on-one as they make the process of doing those investments and doing their transition. So all throughout, and that level of support continues into the future. That is all true of the transition process, and then true for the length of them serving as our record keeper. If we have a staff member who has questions about their investments or wants to discuss a change, they will always have access to phone support, web support, and live human being support throughout the process.
And as a follow-up, does Empower provide investment advice, or are they strictly a record keeper?
So they are a fiduciary, and so can, when, and I'm going to let Matt perhaps maybe best to respond to exactly what the nature of a fiduciary being, because I don't want to get it wrong. So I'm going to kick the fiduciary portion to Mr. Fleck. Let him answer that.
Okay.
Good evening. And to help answer your question, Mr. Fensel, there is a service available through Empower through which they can act as a fiduciary and provide investment advice to participants. We have yet to select that feature. That'll happen during the conversion process when we set up the plan on the system. Without that feature, Empower would be able to provide what's known as an investment guidance. So it falls just short of the fiduciary status, but they can still provide education about the various investment options available in the plan. So both are available. We just haven't gotten to the point in the process to select that fiduciary level of advice.
And so if an employee chose to, I don't know, upgrade or engage in that service, it's available, and I assume that that's a slightly different fee structure if they chose to go that route.
If the committee decides to offer that level of advice through what's known as a managed account feature, there is an additional fee for that advice, and that is borne by the participant. There is an acknowledgement that they understand that that fee applies. It's not paid by the district. And so each participant would have the ability to sign up for that managed account if they choose to do so. But the committee and the district would have to decide to offer that feature in the first place before it would be available.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. I understand.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, board? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the Empire Financial as the retirement plan record keeper as presented by Dr. Kaiser.
Moved and seconded. I'll call the vote. Ms. Fry?
Aye.
Mrs. Horst Krueger?
Aye.
Mr. Fensel?
Aye.
Mrs. George Davis?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. Action item number 4, the new high school courses. Mrs. Conti.
Good evening, President Turner, Dr. Woodson, and members of the board. I am here tonight seeking approval of 5 new courses for North Central. North Central High School is seeking to increase opportunities for students to access rigorous and relevant content through additional course offerings. And these include quantitative reasoning, which is a 4th-year dual credit math course and a rigorous alternative to pre-calculus for students seeking a career in ELA, fine arts, humanities, and performing arts. Computing Foundations for a Digital Age. This is the new graduation requirement from IDOE, and that begins with the current 8th graders. Exploring Education Professions, which is a 1-hour course intended to grow interest in the education field by serving as a stepping stone to the 3-hour CTE course at JEL. AP African American Studies, which provides students a comprehensive understanding of African American history, culture, and contributions, fostering a more inclusive perspective on U.S. history. The course encourages critical thinking, empathy, and cultural awareness, helping students see the interconnectedness of history and social issues. And finally, ACP Art History and Visual Culture. This course provides students with a deep understanding of global artistic traditions, styles, and movements, enriching their impression of cultural diversity and historical context, and fosters cultural awareness and empathy while enhancing students' analytical and observational skills, preparing them for fields such as the arts, humanities, and design. In addition, 3 of the 5 courses proposed will allow additional opportunities for students to earn the Indiana College Core, which Mr. Rent referenced earlier tonight. You should have received a detailed description of all of the courses for your review. And at this time, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions? Mrs. Horst Krueger.
Just so, excuse me, just so that we all understand how we got to this point, tell us a little bit about why these 5.
Well, I'll do my best. I can tell you the quantitative reasoning course is a mathematics course. So part of that is an effort to modernize what we're offering in mathematics, something out of the traditional pathway of pre-calculus to calculus that is relevant in a lot of fields. I know nursing majors in some universities require quantitative reasoning. So it's a dual credit option that gives kids the opportunity to engage in dual credit work, save some money for their families, but is more relevant to their future plans. The Computing Foundations obviously is a requirement from IDOE. The current 8th graders will be required to take that class before they can graduate. So that one we had to. I know there's ongoing conversations, the Ed Professions course, we have the 3-hour CTE course at JEL. We were always looking to build the enrollment in that course. And we've talked a little bit, Dr. Seaver and I have talked a little bit also about using this as an opportunity to create a pipeline, possibly targeting a certain demographic of students to keep students within Washington Township. So get them in Ed Professions, put them in the 3-hour CTE, bring them right back to us when they're done. Those are the aspirations we have for that. The AP African American Studies is a newer course from College Board. So I know that a lot of districts in Indiana are starting to bring that course on. It's just another course to maybe appeal to a demographic of students that don't normally take AP courses. It's very accessible. It's also very rigorous, but it's found some success in pockets of students in their pilots that don't normally take AP courses. And then ACP, Art, History, and Visual Culture. I'm not sure I can speak to that. Exactly. I do know that it is a class that fits in one of the ICC, the Indiana College Core buckets, that we may not have a lot of course offerings. And so as opposed to just having AP Art History, ACP Art History helps us with our partner institution for the ICC, which is IU, because you have to have 15 of those credit hours through there. And then it just offers an alternative for students.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's great.
Other question? Ms. Fry.
And actually looking at the application, it looked like there was still some question as to the dual credit partnership there. Is that a for sure thing we're doing? The dual credit with Ball State, is that?
For quantitative reasoning?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're in talks right now. We're working with Ball State to get everything finalized, but we should be moving right along. I don't foresee any issues with Ball State, but we don't have a confirmation now, so we're still in talks with them.
Now, you may not be able to, but I want to get it out of you.
Okay.
How are you going to make sure the counseling department is sufficiently trained on how to help students choose quantitative reasoning versus pre-calculus calculus? I could see, let's just say I can see that being a major issue. So how are we going to make sure the kids are getting the right direction about which of those paths?
So I think that's a larger question than just the mathematics with the whole change in this diploma. I think we have a lot of support for the counseling department needed. In the math specific, so my background is high school mathematics, so I'm super passionate. I also taught this class for several years in a different district, and messaging is really important. So Mr. Burkholz and I, the DC at North Central, are working on creating sort of a one-pager about pathways for mathematics, which will, through legislation, I think that quantitative reasoning will eventually be equivalent to Algebra 2, actually, and not a fourth-year class. That it ends up in legislation almost every year. It doesn't go through quite yet because National Algebra 2 is a big thing. But we are working on a one-page graphic about, like, if this is my career aspiration or my college major aspirations, what math class is most specific. So we're not just talking about quantitative reasoning up against pre-calculus, but we're also talking about stats, quantitative reasoning, and pre-calculus, and helping kids make choices that are most relevant to what they actually want to do when they leave North Central. So it's not going to be perfect. I know the curriculum Blitz is next week, I believe. So that will be our first opportunity to get in front of them about the different courses. But it is going to take a lot of work. So we will advocate for the department chair to also maybe be a bit more informed about placement of students after Algebra 2.
Other questions, board? Yeah, can you pull your mic?
Can I make a comment or do you want to save that till after me?
If we can get you can go do it now. Just do it now. Yeah, because we're going to.
Questions, motions,
Yep.
comments? I just wanted to say, this is the first I've heard about this exploring education professions. I think that's great because I think it's also a great way, because we have students who are never going to do, right, the JEL one because of what they're planning, because of what else they want to take in the course, but they may still have some interest in teaching and maybe majoring in education, right, in college. And so I see this as a great way because I love what we're doing with that program in JEL, but recognizing that not all students are going to have the room or the inclination to do that. I love that there is another way here to get students who may never want to do the full path in JEL, the 3, but still might be maybe toying with the idea of like being an education major in college. I hope that this converts some of them to get there. So I think that's great, great creativity in figuring that out. Kudos for that.
Sure.
Polytechnic department was mentioned throughout the presentation. I would love to ask Mr. Rent to come and share about that's a new creation of a department and just give a quick highlight about that.
Thank you. Hello again. This new department is our effort to take advantage of some things that are going on in the state. The state has looked to redesign the CTE program, and in a short elevator pitch, they've given us an opportunity to have a principal course, a concentrator A and a concentrator B as a pathway for students. Once they complete that pathway, we have some really cool things that can happen outside of that. And so this gives us the flexibility to create that sequence based on what we have. The state offers some pathways, but we get to create them as well. And so this Polytechnic department will help us do that and put a focus there. We are adding a new leader in our building to head this department up. We've moved some things around, but this instructional leadership position will help us coordinate our efforts as we build this department out. We are taking kind of piecemealing some courses together in classes, and so we'll need a leader and a strong leader for this department, and we're working on that. This department helps us put real world spin on some courses that typically have not had that career lens. And so that's incredibly exciting. And these, with the new high school diploma redesign, we're looking to see how we can embed these courses in the sequence for students. And it accomplishes two things at the same time. And really, it's a cool way to look at new courses and for students. It puts a fresh spin on it and gives them something different at the high school level. Outside of the typical course selections that they've seen, they can take advantage of brand new courses that are just cool.
Any further questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we the high school courses proposed and presented by Mrs.
I'll second.
And moved in second, I will call the vote. Ms. Fry,
Aye.
Mrs. Horth Krueger,
Aye.
Mrs. George Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Fensel.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you both. Appreciate it. Next action item, approval of submission for the Health First Indiana Community Grant for Marion County. Dr. Skabensi.
Two skis and a bin.
Yeah.
Easy way.
Yes.
Dr. Woodson, President
Yes.
Turner, and members of the board, I stand before you today asking for your permission to seek and apply for the Health First Indiana Community Grant for Marion County. Included in your packet are all the details regarding the grant, but the Marion County Public Health Department is requesting applications for competitive funding to issue community grants that must meet the criteria for improving health outcomes and preventing and reducing prevalence of health issues related to public health. This grant must focus on key priority areas identified by the Marion County Health Department. One priority area, which the MSD of Washington Township has acknowledged, is that of vaccine clinics. We would like to seek approval to submit this competitive grant in the amount of $46,000 so that we can work to better ensure the needs of our residents regardless of their insurance status and their status within our country. If you have any questions, we are here to answer those, including our lead nurse.
Mrs. Horth Krueger.
In reading through, and if I'm not seeing it, I apologize in advance, but it says on site at 3 Washington Township schools have determined, or does that happen at a later date?
That would happen at a later date. We're just in the initial to seek your approval. The goal was we took those 3 based upon some immunization clinics, which we ran through Marion County Health Department. And so having 3 sites was very mobile, very accessible. And so really being very strategic about where they place them. Yes, of course. Great question.
Other questions, board? Yes, sure, go ahead.
First of all, this is amazing and I love this. I don't know why we aren't all doing this already. The funding isn't there for everybody, but this is fantastic. And then also I'm going to take this opportunity to share kudos because I happened to be in a meeting where this came up that this year when on exclusion day, when, you know, certain kids, if they don't have it after all the attempts and everything, I don't know about other schools, but I do know that at North Central, the number of kids who had to be excluded on exclusion day was many factors, many times below what it was last year. So
I can add.
Should have been on that list of highlights for North Central, but as long as we're talking about vaccines, I'm going to shout out Mr. Wren.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can share with you that as of November 12th, 97% of our district their immunizations. Through the leadership of Ms. Dykes, we did have an immunization clinic where we offered 539 vaccines to over 176 Washington Township students. Exclusion day, which was October 16th, with thank you for Mr. Rent for housing. The Marion County Health Department assured us they would not turn anyone away. That day alone, on exclusion day, we had 78 students show up to the building and were actually vaccinated and were able to continue to attend school. So right now we are 97%. So there are 299 students who as of 11/12 are not compliant.
By the way, when we look at demographic, right, the ENL population, the free reduced lunch population of those kids without the vaccines. What a huge equity. Thank you. And now I will move that we approve the submission of the Health First Indiana Community Grant as presented by Dr. Smith.
I'll second.
We moved and seconded. I will call the vote. Ms. Fry,
Aye.
Ms. Horst Kruger,
Aye.
Mrs. George Davis,
Sorry, aye.
Mr. Fensel,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next action item, approval of 2024 third quarter, July, August, September financial reports. Mrs. Smith.
Good evening, President Turner, Dr. Woodson, members of the board. I bring to you this evening our customary board reports. And for this one, it is for the third quarter. So that includes July, August, and September. And on the screen this evening, we have our major funds for the quarter. In your board packet, you'll have the individual major funds that are approved by the Department of Local Government Finance. But just wanted to kind of run through the major budgeted funds here for the third quarter. What we have on the left-hand side, we have the revenue and the expenditures. You'll see that revenue at the top, the expenditures at the bottom. The next column there, you'll see our certified budget order, our anticipated revenues, and our approved appropriation for our expenditures. Then in the next column, you'll see the quarter amounts for this third quarter. Just the quarter amounts are in that column for the revenue and the expenditures. And then we also have the year-to-date column there, that second yellow column for this year. So these are calendar year funds, January through December. So you will see there all of those numbers and the year-to-date percentages all the way to the right of what was anticipated and what has been received for the revenue. And then on the bottom portion, what was budgeted for each one of those object line items and where we are year-to-date on the expenditures. And then you'll also see on the right-hand side, the pie chart that shows the breakdown of those budgets by type. We have salaries, benefits, professional services, purchase services, rentals, other purchase services, and travel, and utilities and capital outlay. So you'll see that nice pie chart there. And then also you'll see down below on the charts the revenues and expenditures for the year to date versus the budget for each one of those. And then down at the bottom, you'll see some customary percentages of the year expended. And then right below that, you'll see we're 75% through the year, third quarter, that makes sense. The percent of revenue, the first thing that I look at it, or the average person would be looking at that going, well, why are our revenues showing less than we are for the year? Just a reminder to the board and to the public, our revenue streams are different depending on the fund. So our funds for our education fund come on a monthly basis through the state for through our basic grant, through our enrollment, our ADM, our average daily membership. However, the other major funds are debt service, operations, and debt service, capital debt service, all are through property taxes. And those property taxes the majority of those taxes come twice a year in June and December. So that's why you would see that number lower at this time of year for the third quarter, and that will pop right back up for the fourth quarter. And then another thing that I always look at and like to point out is that percent of the budget expended. So if you recall, during the budget process, it is customary to average high on the estimate for expenditures. So therefore, that is why we allow that number to be a little bit higher in case there are unforeseen needs that might happen that following year. However, we strive to always balance our revenue and our expenditures, and that's why you see that number budgeted, expended less than the year at 67% instead of 75%. So that is by design. Our total fund balance currently for those three major funds is a little over $50 million. So we are right on track with all of our major funds for this third quarter of 2024. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Board have questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the 2024 third quarter financial reports as presented by Mrs.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. I'll call the vote. Ms. Fry?
Aye.
Ms. Orth Kruger?
Aye.
Mrs. George Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Fensel?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Action item number 7, approval and adoption of second reading of policies D 375, F 350, G 175, G 450, G 500, H 100, H 225. Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, President Turner, Dr. Woodson, members of the board. As you have seen me at every board meeting with all these policy revisions that we've done throughout this year, we continue to do so for these next 2 months, and then we'll be back to our customary a couple times a year. So this evening, I have for you the second reading of the policies just mentioned, and I'll just brief through those. In your board packet, you'll find a form C-175 that is on religious instruction and attendance. This goes with our policy C-175 that was adopted in February of 2024, but did not have the form at that time, and that's why that is in your packet. Next, we have policy D-375, and that's on employee discipline, and this replaces policy 3139. And the law does not require this policy, but the policy is based on law, and it is customary for us to have this policy. Next, we have policy F-350, reserve and liquidity policy. This replaces policy 6210.01. And this policy established the minimum operating balance in the education and operation funds as favored by Standard & Poor's, who does our bond ratings for our credit rating for our bonds and our leases. And this is suggested from them to follow our past practice, which in the last 4 to 6 years, we have maintained a minimum of 15% in our reserve funds, and our previous policy had a minimum of 5%. So we wanted to update that. Next, we have policy G-175, chemical management and preparedness for toxic hazard. This replaces policy 8431, and this policy is required. Next, we have policy G-450, advertisements, publications, and naming rights. This replaces policy 9700.01, and this is a policy that is recommended due to all public relations that we have throughout the district. Next, we have policy G-500, and this is intellectual property and ownership revenue. This policy is optional but highly recommended, and we have chose to include this policy for approval. Next, we have policy H-100, and that is school visitor and parent family engagement. This replaces policies 2261.01, 2281, 9150, and 9250. And this is required and contains Title I, school visitor info, and parent and family engagement information. Next, we, last but not least for this one, we have policy H-225, which is public comment and concerns. This replaces policy 9130, and the law does not require this, but the policy is based on law and customary for Washington Township. And just wanted to note this change on this one. This would be changing our 21 minutes to 30 minutes allowance for public comment. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have on this.
Board have questions?
Like usual comments, since I do have a lot of members of the public here. For those of you who don't always watch these live streams, because I know they're time viewing, watching these, you may not have heard me make this. I just want to always acknowledge that you hear it's a lot of policies and a lot of words, and it feels like, oh my gosh, they really know what's in all these? Yes. I just want to answer that question preemptively. Yes, I actually serve on the committee with Mrs. Smith. We meet every month. We go through these. I ask questions. I make suggestions. She goes back to lawyers. It is a process. So I just always like to, every couple meetings, assure the public that we do our know what they're about. And I know I personally have put a lot of time into going through them line by Mrs. Smith. So just. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Then I would move that we approve and adopt with second reading policies D 375, F 350, G 175, G 450, G 500, H 100, and H 225 as presented by Mrs. Smith.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. I will call for the vote. Ms. Fry,
Aye.
Ms. Horst Kruger,
Aye.
Mrs. George Davis,
Sorry, trouble's coming off of mute. Aye.
Mr. Fensel.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Next action item, approval of the first reading of policies F 300, F 325, G 225, G 400, G 475, and H 200. Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, President Turner, Dr. Woods, and members of the board. We bring to you the first reading of the policies just mentioned. I will do a brief overview for them for you, of them for you. Policy F 300 is time and effort. And this is not a requirement for policy, but it's helpful for federal grant tracking and our audit regulations. Next, we have policy F 325, debt management. And this also is not a required policy, but is helpful in bond ratings and suggested by Standard & Poor's, who does our bond ratings. And then we have policy G 225, vehicle idling. This replaces policy 8615, and this is required and retained as is, according to our previous policy. Next, we have policy G 400, Title I, comparability, and this is required due to ESSA requirements from the state, and that stands for Every Student Succeeds Act, and it helps with all of our federal grants. Next, we have policy G 475, prohibits, I can't even talk this evening, prohibition of unmanned aircraft. And this is one of those, if applicable, this is an optional if we wanted to address drone usage around our facilities. And this does have an exception that's granted by the superintendent and or designee, such as when we use drone for our own marketing, construction projects, and things like that. Next, we have policy H200, relations with special interest groups. This replaces policy 9700, and this also was one of those, the law does not require the policy, but based on law, and is just continuing with replacing this with our previous policy that we already have on hand. And I would be happy to answer any questions the board may have on these policy changes.
Board, questions? Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
That we approve the first reading of policies F 300, F 325, G 225, G 400, G 275, and H 200 as presented by Mrs. Smith.
I'll second.
Moved in seconded. I'll call the vote. Ms. Fry.
Aye.
Mrs. Horst Kruger.
Aye.
Mrs. George Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Fensel.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Very much.
Next on the agenda, I don't know who's up here more, Mrs. Smith or Mr. Boots. They're here every week. Approval of the approval of contract for abatement services, Mr. Boots.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Dr. Woodson and members of the board. I am here representing the capital projects team and requesting approval of a contract for Star Environmental, Inc. for hazardous waste material abatement at the JEL building, JEL Phase 5 and Washington Township Services Center Phase 6 projects combined into a single bid. The financial impact of this contract is $129,000, and of course will be paid through capital referendum funding. Be happy to answer any questions.
Board have questions? I just have one, Mr. Boots. Is this a provider that we've used in the past? I know we have other abatements. We have other, when we did all the remodels everywhere. Is this, I can't remember, is this a different one or is it one of the same?
This is one that we have used in the past. I think Star has done 3, maybe 4 other projects for us.
Okay.
Among other contractors have participated as well.
Right. Okay. Any other questions?
Bill, I've
Hearing
got a
none?
question.
Oh, you don't, Your Honor, you do.
I do.
Okay.
Mr. Boots, what abatement needs to be done? Is this mostly in insulation, or is it adhesives, or what's the cause of this?
Good question. There's not as much as we anticipated, frankly, between JEL and the Services Center or the old Northview, simply because of the age of the buildings. But district's done a good job of removing the hazardous material over the years, and we're really down to old floor tile and mastic that adheres it. Oftentimes, this floor tile had had carpet installed over top of it, so out of sight, out of mind. And it wasn't until we really began to do some destructive testing that we identified it. And this will remove, our goal is to remove all of the hazardous material from all of the buildings going forward. So that
Okay,
districts
thank you.
quote unquote clean.
No further questions. I'll entertain a motion.
That we approve the contract for abatement services as presented by Mr.
I'll call the,
I'll second.
yeah, I need to have a second before I can call. I'll call the vote. Ms. Fry,
Aye.
Ms. Horth Krueger,
Aye.
Mrs. George Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Fensel,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Boots. And last agenda item, our last action item, approval of the 2016-2020 capital construction project change orders. Mr. Boots.
Mr. President, and again, good evening, Dr. Woodson and members of the board. I am requesting tonight the approval of 2 project change orders on 2 different projects. Those change orders are change order number 004 to Essential Architectural Signs at the West Lane 2016 project, and change order number 008 to Smoot Construction for Spring Mill and Crooked Creek Elementary projects. The financial impact will be a decrease of $15,866 to the 2016 referendum projects and a decrease of $4,264 for the 2020 referendum projects. Be happy to respond to any questions.
Any questions, board? He knows how he gets his chest sticks out when he gives us money back. That's it.
I was
Motion
just
for a
gonna say no
decrease.
questions, but I
Oh.
know Mr. Boots knows that I love to get money back.
Yes, we do.
If there are no questions, I move that we approve the 2016-2020 capital construction project change orders as presented by Mr. Boots.
It's been moved in second. I will call the vote. Ms. Fry.
Aye.
Mrs. Horth Krueger,
Aye.
Mrs. George Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Fensel,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Boots. That concludes our action items. We'll now move into our information items. The first item is Washington Township Roadmap to Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Dr. Pettigrew and Mr. Rent.
Good evening, Board President Turner, Dr. Woodson, members of the board. So we are here to provide a brief overview of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the district. I will say that it is a pleasure to present with Mr. Ritt, who's going to give an overview from the high school lens. We could potentially be here all evening talking about equity and inclusion because it is the responsibility of every single department, from HR to nutrition to technology. And I often say teaching and learning is an extension. Every department is an extension of teaching and learning. But I'm very proud of the team that I have here, and I think someone slipped out. I do see Tim over there. But we have a really robust team, experts in their field. We have 4 directors, and then we have a great support staff. And so, as I stated just a second ago, everything connects to teaching and learning, but also to our North Star, which is our strategic plan. So just for this evening, because again, we could talk about every department, I want to categorize it in 3 buckets. So professional learning, student success and access, and then school climate and family engagement. So these are our 3 main buckets for this evening. One of the main pieces of our plan is to ensure that we have robust professional learning. We want to have structured, collaborative opportunities for teachers and staff.
And so we utilize ongoing PD to build upon prior learning. One thing that we often talk about is making sure that the learning is not just for today, but that it is ongoing and continuous. And we can see that in our lessons, in our assessments. And so this is a huge portion of what we do in teaching and learning, as well as what we see through our title grants that are funded for professional development. So a few areas specifically, literacy, we know that we have a new literacy curriculum, CKLA. So there's been intensive professional development around our literacy curriculum. We just had staff training last week. Was last week e-learning? I'm getting my days mixed up. On our last e-learning day. But we often have conversations about strong Tier 1 instruction as it relates to CKLA. And so that's one area of making sure that our literacy practices are coherent, that they are consistent regardless of which building a student may attend. We also have Interrupting Racism for Children. This is a 2-day training. And I will say that I when I came here in January, I commended Dr. Woodson's initiative. Every administrator is required to attend this training. And so to date, all of our administrators and our coordinators have attended the 2-day training through Child Advocates. And so we're especially proud of the ability for our staff to attend through that partnership. And then obviously MTSS, and I know that Mr. Rent spoke about that earlier as it related to grade level support teams, but we are focused on not only having a strong MTSS system, but also making sure that we see that it's aligned across the district. We have a great lead in Jennifer Atkinson, who's done tremendous work with MTSS, and we're going to continue to build upon that. And that is an equity issue, so we wanted to make sure we pointed that out. We also have the Elevate framework and summer PD. I've never seen summer PD that is so robust as I've seen here. This was truly really a great opportunity for staff to engage in PD. And we had hundreds of staff this past summer that attended that conference, and it was completely connected to our Elevate framework. And so it's not just by happenstance, or it's not just abstract topics. It is directly connected to what we want to see in quality instruction. And so staff had opportunities to attend over 100 sessions over those 2 days. And then we continue with that through our Elevate framework, which we expect administrators to provide one walkthrough every week in their building aligned to this Elevate framework. The data analysis, we are digging more into our data, and I will say Dr. McCallick and his team have done a tremendous job to bring data to life. We are able to get real-time data. We are able to filter it through many different components, whether it's race and ethnicity, whether it's SES, whether it's special ed or ELL. We're able to filter that data and have meaningful conversations in our leadership meetings, and then take that data back and make sure that it's actionable. We had a data analysis PD last week, and the feedback that we have received is that it's some of the best PD they've received to go back into their building and be impactful using the most current data, the iLearn checkpoint data. So that is one piece of our professional learning. And then our high ability and honors, which we know is an equity issue. We want to make sure we're increasing access to all of our students in these programs. And so we have Andrea Cannon through her work with Mr. Blom, and we have provided 2 additional PD opportunities for not just cluster teachers or high ability or honors teachers, but all teachers. And then we've also provided a parent session that was well attended as well. And so these are also connected to our focus on equitable achievement. We have had 3 book studies, one that will be in progress fairly quickly. The one on the left, Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity, we are a part of a 5-school district book study group that includes Carmel, Clay, Warren Township, Clark Pleasant, and Perry Township. And we are actually concluding that book study this week, tomorrow to be exact. And that has allowed over 100 educators to come together virtually and talk about how we can be more inclusive in our buildings. And so that has been pretty powerful. Our principals are reading The Art of Coaching Teams, not just in silo, but alongside teaching and learning, to talk about how do we coach for academic excellence, for performance in our buildings. And so that is our current read. We are also
We've read The Assistant Principal by Principal Kafele. We just completed that book study, and that is also a guide for being an instructional leader as an AP and even a dean. And so that has been a great book study. And then when we talk about building capacity, we want to make sure that DEI work is not the job of one person. And so what we've seen as an example, one of our DLI instructional coaches from Willow Lake is conducting a book study, the book on your right, Teaching for Biliteracy, and has invited members in the district to attend. And so we will begin that book study very soon. This year I have provided a Monday Minute, which has been something that I often hear about from the buildings as recently as yesterday is valuable information. I guess I'll take that. I have 105 subscribers across the district. And essentially I send out what I consider to be a short and brief newsletter that's palatable for those that are reading it, that it's something that could be done in a short amount of time. There's typically professional development opportunities across the globe that are virtual that they can attend. There is something they can read or watch with reflective questions. And this is an example of what I send out every Monday to that group. And essentially, it's like Mr. Ritt talks about that slow drip of equity. This is what we provide every Monday to principals, to teachers, IAs, everyone in the district. This is Principal Kafele, and this is an example of our speaker series. And this is the book that our assistant principals and deans just completed. We will have a speaker series. This is tomorrow, actually. And we'll engage with Principal Kafele in our principal meeting, our AP meeting. Then he'll have a few walkthroughs. He'll go over and talk with Mr. Wren over at the high school, and then back tomorrow night to talk about how can we transform our practices to make sure they're inclusive of all of our students. And so we look forward to that. That's the first of many, hopefully over the years, but we look forward to talking with him tomorrow night. I have also been in the buildings quite a bit. I have been requested to provide professional development, and these are some of the titles of the PDs that I've provided. Just yesterday, I was in Cricket Creek providing Reaching and Teaching Black Boys, when we look at our disproportionate outcomes in not only behavioral data, but in academic data that is worthy of a conversation and more discussion about what we believe about students. And so these are PD opportunities that I've provided, not just to the buildings, but I've also had an opportunity to meet with transportation and have a PD with our transportation department. I've been over to JEL, to True North, and so really getting integrated into the schools to provide additional support in many of these areas. Student success. We know this is critical to the work that we do. We have an established DELT, District Equity Leadership Team. Every member of Teaching and Learning is a part of this team, every member of the support department, as well as all of our admin. So that includes all principals, all of our APs, and including our deans, because we want them to also be knowledgeable about how to use data to inform what they do in the building. And so we disaggregate our data using Power BI, which is really the tool that Dr. McCallick has provided for us. We evaluate our support programs aimed at closing gaps. So really working with Crystal Hazlitt, working with Jen Dotson. We look at our participation rates in our high ability and honors classes, and then dig into our college career readiness. And so we've been able to use this monthly meeting. We have about 3 hours a month, just isolated time to get together and go through data and to talk about solutions. School climate and family engagement. Community Coalition, of which President Turner has visited our meeting. This is just a great opportunity to engage our families and our community members. And in conversations with Crystal Hazlitt, the coalition was instrumental in the vaccination clinics throughout the year and supporting that through the one that was over in our middle schools. So to Wendy's point earlier, we've hosted 3 this year. We've been able to reduce the number of kids that would be excluded. And so we're very excited by the work that not only the coalition has done, but that our student support services have done to make sure that we are mitigating those barriers for kids. To the right, you will see our structure for Community Coalition. We want to make sure that it is solution focused. And so every meeting has a topic Coming up on the 18th, we will talk with our Student Services Department. So we'll talk about counseling, social work, and IEPs and 504s. And then in February, we have Mr. Rent and his team coming to our meeting. March, we have Dr. Taylor and Chief. And then in May, we bring it all together with all of our principals to engage with Community Coalition to talk more about what we want to do for next year. Our multilingual family liaison support is instrumental in making sure that we are removing barriers. And so one of the things that I want to point out is while we have 3,500 ML families, that doesn't mean that they are English language learners. So those are two different groups of kids, although it could overlap. So we have 2,500 approximately ENL students, but we have 3,500 ML families. And one thing that I want to point out, one solution to a problem. This year we have 3 copiers that will translate on the spot and send it via email or print it on the spot in whatever language is needed. We have one that was installed at North Central, I think last week maybe. We have one that was installed at Willow Lake this week. And then our third one will be installed in the next few days here at CEC. So that when we have central enrollment, or we have over the summer when parents are coming and we cannot have someone there to translate, we have a copier, we can translate every single document in any language. And when you look at 72 student languages, this is an important piece that will help us connect with families. We have school counseling, and through our comprehensive program with our school counselors, we are looking at a reduction in office referrals. We're looking at an increase on iLearn specific to Black students who did not pass in 6th and 7th grade. And then obviously the big 3 referrals are a part of our QAR process and our DSP. And so we're looking to decrease those by 10%. And so when we think about our school counselors, they are integral in that tier 1 support space as well as the tier 2. We conducted our Inspire You Leadership Conference. This was, I want to say this was the second year. So when I arrived in January, this was one of the first projects that I was told it has to be on the calendar. Students love this project. They love this conference. It is a collaboration with CIESC, and we had over 150 students from grades 6 to 12. We had a middle school day. We had a high school day. We invited community members, members of local government to come and talk about what it means to be a leader in the community, not just the school community, but in the community in which they live. And so we will have that opportunity again in the spring, and we will pull together diverse students to be a part of that conference. When we look at our success, and there are many, if you remember, I talked about the Elevate walkthroughs and how important they are to our instruction. And just at the elementary level, we've had over 500 that were completed in August, September, and October, and over 1,000 thus far across our entire system. That is amazing. That means that we are getting into classrooms to take a look at solid instruction and be able to offer real-time feedback to teachers about instruction. The average attendance rate, we know attendance is a huge priority for all students in Indiana, specifically here in Washington Township, and all of our middle schools have a 95% attendance rate, and that is to be commended. We have 441 North Central students that earned their dual credit at JEL, and 41% of those were Black students, and we're extremely proud by that. Again, 100% of our administrators have completed Interrupting Racism for Children. And then in our partnership with Center for Leadership Development, we offered students an opportunity to get a 50% reduction on the fee for that career or that college fair, that very large one that thousands of students attend, and 41 students took us up on that offer for 50% reduction. This is what I'm especially proud of, and I know that Mr. Rent will also share his data specifically. But when we look at overall discipline year to date, same time period as last year, we have decreased in our OSS 40%, and that is tremendous. We've decreased 82% in expulsions from this time last year to now. And there are quite a few reasons. Obviously, relationships, to Mr. Rent's point, is key. We also have real-time data. We're able to look at data today, and it is today's data. And it's not old data. We are operating from very current and real data, and then we can make that actionable. We're able to see the names of students who may have challenges and behaviors, and then provide tier 2, tier 3 support. And then finally here, our achievement data, we are extremely proud of being first or second in this category as we compare similar schools to Washington Township. We often see that our math data is higher than our ELA data. That is also true with our checkpoint data thus far. We're getting together to analyze our first checkpoint and to see where we see trends, but just on a surface level, we're seeing that math has continued to be higher in proficiency than ELA. But when we compare ourselves to like schools, we are first or second, but we recognize that there is a gap between our students. And so two things can be true. We can be especially proud of the work that we've done and then know that we have more work to do. And so we are working very hard to make sure we have our early warning system through Otis, also using MTSS process and using M-Class in our elementary space, using professional development as well as family engagement. Mr. Rick.
Thank you, Dr. Pettigrew. I want to also thank Dr. Woodson for this opportunity. I'm not up here a lot tonight because I know a lot. I'm up here satisfying some course requirements through Ball State. They really like when we present in front of the board. So thank you, Dr. Woodson, for finding opportunities for me to do this. Professional learning at North Central, just want to point out that it is embedded in the strategies that we are learning each month. We have 2 professional learning sessions with our teachers each month, and they have been really fruitful in advancing some of our equity work. In those professional learnings, we are focused specifically on a strategy called total participation techniques. And that is a strategy that includes all students in the learning and not just those ones who raise their hand the most. And so our teachers are learning those this semester, and we are seeing really huge dividends from that professional learning. And it really means all. We're not just calling on the ones who want to participate, trying to find ways to get everyone involved. We are inspecting what we are teaching on a regular basis through learning walks, and we are looking for those in the classroom. When we had our executive leadership visit this week, we asked our leaders to look for those things as well, and they've done that. Student success, we've had a substantial success at JEL. You can see those attributes there on the left. A lot of our students are involved. Our national merit recognition, we had 22 students receive national recognition based on their achievement throughout this PSAT learning cycle. And so extremely proud of that as far as success. As Dr. Pettigrew pointed out, our trends and the trajectory of our discipline looks really good early on, and we are going to just keep stacking those and building that for the year. School climate and family engagement, really partnering with our PTO and our parents. Our parents hear from me every week at 6 o'clock, Sundays, faithfully. And just one story with the partnership that we're forming with our parents. We brought our finals framework to our parents recently, and really we're proud of that work. We thought it was a good framework. Our parents had some other ideas, and we took that feedback and changed our framework based on our parents' feedback. And so we took it back to WTA, we took it back to CEC, we took it back to our leadership team and changed it based on the parents' recommendation and rolled out a completely new finals framework just based on the partnership that we have with our parents. And so that's been great. Talked about our communities partnership a little bit in the spotlight, but the $29,000 award that we won for our work with work-based learning is just commendable. That's Ms. Williams there, and she helped lead our process and our partnership there. And Panorama, any parents that are watching want to make sure that when that survey comes out, that you take that survey. We have a goal there to meet. We can't get better without your feedback. So that's something I just wanted to highlight in terms of family engagement, making sure that our parents' voices are heard through our Panorama survey. And this is me too. So success stories. 63% of our Black students who are enrolled in dual credit at JEL during the 23-24 school year. That's an 8% increase from the previous year. 29 students participated in the HBCU field trip over fall break. Talked about that earlier. We sent 42 students to the Indiana Latino Education Summit, and we're already making plans to bring a larger group next year. Over 215 multilingual learners are enrolled in our heritage language class this school year. As Dr. Pettigrew noted, we have seen a decrease in out-of-school suspensions, 45%, 75% in expulsions based on this time last year, and 71% decrease in virtual placement. I want to just talk a little bit about that. When we have students out of school less at this rate, that means they're learning more. And I talked about this earlier this year, that this is all connected to student achievement. If we can keep students in the classroom and in our schools, they're going to achieve higher. And so we're looking for, when we're taking those high stake tests, when we're taking our finals, that our students are going to perform more because they're at school more. And so we're extremely proud of that. Our virtual-based learning placement being down, again, virtual learning is okay, but there's nothing like being in person. And so with the partnership here at CEC, helping us really scrutinize our discipline events to make sure that we come out with consequences or reactions, responses to students that are equitable. We can't do it without Dr. Pettigrew and her team to help us look at how we are processing these events.
Earlier, and it was 1,600,000, and this was submitted, and then it's now over 2 million. And so this just is a testament to the work in our Avid classrooms, and just the work that your team, Mr. Wren, has done, as well as the team at the middle school. This is implemented fully, helping kids learn about college and career, helping them with their motivation and their determination, their perseverance. And so this is really a great opportunity for kids in our district. And then obviously opportunities to improve. We want to improve the disproportionality that we see in discipline. It is an area that we have continued, and it's a nationwide concern. And we tend to see kids of color, kids in poverty, kids that have an IEP that are at the very top of that discipline data. And so that's obviously an area of focus for us as well. Kids can't excel if they're not in the classroom. We're also wanting to increase dual credit coursework. 9% of those were Black students, so we want to make sure that we're increasing that access for all kids. And then obviously, all roads lead to North Central, and the goal is graduation for all kids. So we want to make sure that we have that opportunity for all kids to graduate from North Central, and that includes all of our subjects. That concludes our presentation. A little bit longer than I expected.
Oh, thank you. Board have questions? Ms. Fry?
I know it's getting late, so I won't ask as many as I want to, but discipline. These numbers are staggering, staggeringly good, to be clear. I guess my first part of my question, and I don't want to take away from any of the great work you've done, but I'm wondering, are other districts seeing, I'm wondering if some of this can be explained by post-COVID, we kind of had kids lose their minds, right? And like, is some of this sort of coming back to normalization? So I'm kind of curious if it's only us, or is part of this just kind of everybody level setting COVID? And I guess I'm not even sure what my question is the next part, but I mean, obviously it's part of our strategic plan. You know, it's not like we don't look at kind of this data and this information. And I mean, I've always been proud of the fact that in Washington Township, we are not kicking kids out of school unless it's like, I mean, it is a danger, a violence, like a real, genuine, like physical safety issue, right? We don't kick kids out for being disrespectful. I know sometimes they get sent for an office referral, and we try to get away from that. But like, so I guess my question is, I mean, is this indicative of that significant of a decrease in in physical violence and aggression in our schools. I mean, is that what these huge decreases correlate? Is an equally huge decrease in just the number of times people are putting their hands on each other in our schools? I mean, it's great if the answer is yes, but I kind of want to hear more about that.
That's right. So, want to address the first question first. Is this something we're seeing nationally or not? I would say that probably the further we get away from COVID, the more things feel normal. And I would imagine other school districts are seeing that trajectory as well. Can't speak specifically to other districts because we got our nose down at North Central. But I will tell you that we're not cooking the books. Are still writing up the same referrals that we wrote up last year. We're not writing things up. Some people just want to make that clear. But I will tell you that the biggest part is our focus on relationships with students. And so that's modeled from top down and the way that we're building our culture. And when you're building relationships with students and making them feel a part of the building, they're gonna perform and step up for us. And so our standards have not dropped, but our relationships have increased.
I also add that we've also made sure that we've increased support. So whether it's counseling, whether there is a need through the social worker. And then one piece of the process that we modified this year in terms of virtual placement, previously schools could recommend virtual placement and there really wasn't a check and balance there. And so now and typically when we say virtual placement, we're really talking about middle and high school. So now if a school recommends a virtual placement for whatever reason, they must request it from their director and get approval. And so what that allows is for them to have conversations about what is the best thing to do to support this kid. Even if it is a virtual placement, do we still need to add some counseling pieces in that plan? So that allows for more conversations between the director and the schools.
Can I just say, I'm honestly feeling a little emotional talking about this because neither of you're fairly new still, Dr. Pettigrew and Mr. Rent. You're still, my daughter's a junior, as you guys I think know, at North Central, and freshman year was rough. Freshman year for her was really, and I'm just gonna say that to see these numbers and to think about and appreciate what that means for the experience. Not just, and keep my kid is such a rule follower. Oh my God. Like she's never been in trouble a day in her life, but you know, she doesn't get disciplined, but what these numbers say about what the climate in that building is like for all kids. As a Panther parent, thank you. It actually makes me a little emotional seeing, how things have changed since she started.
Kudos to Mr. Rent's leadership, his team. He made big, bold moves when he first came in. He didn't say, I need a semester, get my feet wet to start. He made big, bold moves. And it's paid off.
Yes, Ms. Horst Kruger.
No, no question, just a comment. You know, when the strategic plan was first launched and it was so big and so unwieldy, you know, looking at it, reading it in my mind, I was like, how in the world is this going to move forward? But now we're at the end of that, getting ready to do another one. And the strength, the foundation, what has been accomplished through the first strategic plan just sets us up so beautifully for the second one. And I think that, in my humble opinion, and I am not an educator, but the fact that it's the whole child look and it's the whole environment look, and it's not just to the teacher to fix it. It's not just to the school principal to fix it. It's this beautiful cross section of every person who's in a building or in this building being active in finding solutions and really digging deep and making and how much we've all learned to dig deep. And so nothing but applause and kudos and absolute respect for what has been accomplished. And I'm excited to see what happens next. And I keep saying this show needs to go on the road. You must present at national conferences, because we were just at a conference and hands down, this would have exceeded all expectations. So just be proud. Obviously things to learn and lessons and all the things, we know that, but this is a moment in my mind to feel proud, and you got it from a parent who's been living it at North Central. So it's very cool.
Mr. Fensel or Mrs. George Davis?
Yeah, I had a comment. First, I really just wanted to thank you and your team for the intentionality of this work. As the other parent on the board, this is my second go around. My first child, we didn't know if he was gonna make it just because of things that were happening at North Central. And I was extremely worried about my younger child getting there, just what was happening in the building. We don't need to rehash it. Just the past few years, as Ms. Fry stated, was rough, and we were just really worried. And to see, even with his crazy course load, to see my child with the challenges that we deal with on a daily basis come home and know that he is recognized as the individual that he is, that when people walk through the building, they know him, they know his schedule, they just know, hey, there he goes. So I just really, more than commenting on it, just wanted to thank you for the intentionality that is going behind this work, because people in the community are seeing it. I have friends that are in the northern districts, and they comment about the work that's happening at North Central and in our district on a regular basis. So yes, keep it up. And to Ms. Horth Kruger's point, like honestly, as we were sitting in those sessions, we were like, our team could command this audience because we're doing this work and we're just blowing it out of the water. So I'm really proud to be a part of this team. So I just wanted to thank you guys.
Mr. Fensel? Don't want to leave you out.
Oh, no, I appreciate that, Bill. No, just a comment that we thank you for all your hard work. So we appreciate it.
And then I'll close it out by saying ditto to everybody, what they said, except I don't have any students in the district right now, but in the past I did. But I will also, I really, and I know we're saying this, three of us are saying this, but I really think the more we can get this, the more details you can put together, the more you see these changes happen, the more we need to talk about it outside of our community. I know our community needs to know, but outside, because as we all know, there are outside people looking in saying we're not doing what we need to do. Why don't they fire everybody? We need to voice the fact that we are doing good things. Our students are learning. Our students are progressing, and to beat back the loud voices that are outside our community. So whatever we can do to do that, I know most times, good news isn't good news for news, but we need to make sure we figure out a way to market as much as we can. So I appreciate all the good work. With that, I'll say thank you. Next, on the information item, the last item for the day is enrollment management rezoning recommendation for 2025-2026 school year by Dr. Taylor.
Good evening again. Thank you, President Turner, Dr. Woodson, members of the board. I am here to present this evening's info item on enrollment management and our recommendation for improving balances across schools for next school year. I'm going to go relatively quickly in the first part of this evening's presentation so that we can get to more of the questions and feedback that we've received over the course of the past few weeks since the initial info item. And so where have we been? Again, we did start an enrollment task force a year ago. And in that task force, we looked at several different challenges and potential solutions in addressing those challenges. Some of those included some transportation challenges that we were experiencing. So we looked at some non-eligibility transportation zones or safe walk zones. We also looked at all of our different tiers of late busing, We reviewed academic programming, which included high ability, self-contained programming, special education services throughout the district, our dual language immersion program, which we'll talk about significantly this evening, and discuss plans for future strategic planning. And then through that work, we introduced and we reviewed and revised scenarios for consideration and direction for 25-26, which leads us to this evening. So revisiting the why behind this work and what problems we're trying to solve. We have an imbalance in enrollment across our middle schools that we've seen grow over the past few years. We know there's been a desire communicated to leaders in the district for those neighborhoods closer to their schools, particularly their middle schools, to return back to that closer middle school. For example, those neighborhoods that were prior to 1718 around Northview Middle School or were zoned for Northview Middle School had been rezoned to Eastwood. And we know that there was a desire for families to do that, to return to Northview. We also know that there's some families in the traditional Eastwood area that were rezoned for Northview who also desired to return to Eastwood because of its geographic location. We looked at expansion of dual language immersion programming, knowing that we needed to do a K-8 articulation. So we wanted to establish a direct feeder for that. We also realized that in the demographic study that was done that forecasted the future of this district for the next 7 years has thus far been very inaccurate because we were supposed to decline over the next 7 years, and we have grown substantially in a fast amount of time in the past 2 years. We are at capacity at Clearwater and Willow Lake. We're near capacity at Allisonville, while we have 3 other elementary schools that are pretty significantly below capacity in Nora, Spring Mill, and Greenbrier. We know we wanted to look at creating space for more Willow Lake DLI opportunities. And we wanted to maintain or improve current routing efficiencies because we have improved drastically our transportation reliability and efficiencies. And we want to at least at minimum maintain that, looking for opportunities to improve that because we are still hurting with regard to finding bus drivers in this district. So we are still well below capacity. We would ideally love to be around 100 drivers, and we're currently at 88. So that is a complexity that we cannot avoid. Where are we going next? So after this evening's info item, we'll continue to gather feedback and then formulating the final recommendation for board action at the next board meeting, which is in December, on December 11th. At that time, depending on where we go from there, we will plan intentional outreach with those families specifically impacted. We'll also work on as smooth as possible transitions for those families impacted. We will begin routing changes based on the recommendations in February, possibly late January. And we will implement these changes over the summer in preparation again for school starting next school year. So the goals of this rezoning work was for Eastwood zone surrounding the new Northview campus to be rezoned to Northview, to create a direct feeder from Willow Lake to West Lane Middle School that supports DLI articulation K-8. We wanted to improve enrollment in balance throughout our 3 middle school campuses. And we wanted to improve enrollment imbalances between elementary schools, particularly Greenbrier and Willow Lake. And then we finally looked at eliminating as many island zones, or those schools that are one-off, that are in a neighborhood where a neighborhood nearby might be going, or neighborhoods nearby might be going to a different school. And so this is a visual of our current middle school boundaries, and the arrows draw attention to what the proposed middle school boundary changes will look like. So you can see they're current around the new Northview Middle School. Those families around that in yellow are currently zoned for Eastwood. In this proposal, they would return to the new Northview Middle School. You see the pocket there that was originally Northview Middle School. You can see in this area here, oh, sorry, I just clicked on the slide. See that we have some families that are scheduled for Northview that would be rezoned to West Lane Middle School. And those are neighborhoods that are far closer to West Lane. You also see over here, you have a proposal for those Eastwood families or traditional Eastwood families that are now current Northview families. So that's reflected right in this area here. They would be rezoned back to Eastwood. These are the specific neighborhood and areas impacted, as well as the number of students impacted. So you would have 90 students that are current Eastwood students that would be rezoned to Northview. You would have 52 students at Northview who would be returning to Eastwood. You have 84 students that are at Northview who would be rezoned to West Lane Middle School. This is a visual of the scenario for elementary. Our focus here is on Willow Lake and Greenbrier. So with the arrows here, you can see that these about half, what appears to be half geographic land, if you will, communities of Willow Lake would be rezoned to Greenbrier. What's interesting here about Greenbrier is Greenbrier looks bigger, but there is a significant commercial zone in the heart of Greenbrier right here where there are no families who attend our schools in that commercial zone. So you see in the proposal where you would have Willow Lake families in those arrows, those geographic zones, rezoned to Greenbrier. And you can see that Willow Lake looks much smaller than most other geographic zones. But this, you have to understand, is a very heavily density population of students. And so with that comparison in our proposal, you'll find that still Willow Lake would be larger than Greenbrier, even with this proposed change. These are the specific areas impacted. That's 3 single-family unit residential neighborhoods and 2 apartment communities with 104 total students impacted that would be rezoned to Greenbrier. But 54 of those students are in the current DLI program and would be allowed to stay at Willow Lake and transportation provided for them. That is an accommodation we felt strongly about, even though it presents challenges from a transportation lens, because we cannot replicate dual language immersion programming anywhere else in the district. And every other academic programming that we offer, we are able to replicate them throughout the district, with the exception of dual language immersion. And so we felt like that would be a detriment to those current dual language immersion students, K4, to not offer that assistance to those families. And that's 54 of those. So the overall scenario summary impact, you can see that we're looking at just under 300 total students impacted. The only reason why we draw attention to that, based on some of the commentary here this evening, is not to make that a minor detail, as if it's not a significant impact. Nobody likes the idea of having to move any child's school. It's simply to say that when you look at rezoning, you can take comprehensive approaches, which we have done in the past in this district, which has impacted a significant higher amount of students throughout the district than what this rezoning proposal does. You can see what Eastwood loses, Northview loses in terms of 136 total students and a breakdown of where those students will go. Willow Lake, you can see the students, 104 total impacted, but 51 students who would really be rezoned to Greenbrier, unless for some reason a current DLI family wanted to try Greenbrier and didn't want to return. But that is an opportunity that is afforded to them. You can see the school capacity impact. Greenbrier goes from the low 500s to the high 500s, and Willow Lake would go to this from 750 to 660. Over time, that would improve even further to where Greenbrier and Willow Lake would almost balance out equally over time once those current DLI K4 students moved on. That is how that would look. Eastwood, you can see they lose but gain capacity to grow more. Northview gets a little bit more breathing room, down from over 1,000 students to 910. West Lane, you can see they grow from the mid sevens to 845 students based on these projections. Transportation reduction of one route with this work, and that's at the middle schools. So that's a win for our transportation system, but not significant. Over on the right side, you can see this is the least impact to the overall district. DLI students rezoned to Greenbrier could continue at Willow Lake with transportation. We addressed the majority of our why principles or the problems that we were trying to solve still with this rezoning recommendation. Will be supported by those close to Northview Middle School who want to return to Northview Middle School. When they move on from Nora, instead of going to Eastwood, they could go to a school right across the street from where they live. And then you have current Northview Middle School students having to go to Eastwood or West Lane. Obviously, that's upsetting because this is moving schools and that's difficult. We understand that. We do not address the overcrowding currently at Clearwater. And there's a reason why we can't address that because of the complexities with transportation and the increased route times. We did not feel like that was going to make sense. So overall, you can see the points of the stated goals and where they're reflected in the map. The dark bold lines reflect the middle school redrawn lines. And you can see the overall changes to Greenbrier and Willow Lake based on the current enrollment. These are not based on projections. These are based on our current numbers. Going back to our whys, imbalance at Northview Middle School and a desire for those neighborhoods to return. And I'm sorry that this conversion has all the ones there instead of those numbered in order. That's a conversion from Google to Microsoft for you. Imbalance at Northview and a desire for those neighborhoods to return, check. Expansion of DLI programming into West Lane, with Willow Lake being a direct feeder. We have capacity challenges at Clearwater, Allisonville, and Willow Lake Elementary School, while still having Nora, Spring Mill, Greenbrier significantly below capacity. We do address that. Partially though, just from the Willow Lake side of the equation. Create space at Willow Lake to allow for more DLI programming as they continue to work to grow that program. And then maintain and improve our current routing efficiencies. And so again, with that conversion, this slide somehow got messed up. And so there should be check marks all along that right side there. And so frequently asked questions, I do know that people have accessed these, so I won't dwell on anything other than the changes. So right now, based on feedback very early on in this process, after the first info item, I did go back and look and work with our Transpar partners about the opportunity for the whole notion of grandfathering or exemption for current 5th grade students to stay at Willow Lake or current 8th grade students to stay at Eastwood or Northview. We are going to be able to open up the in-district limited choice application to those families who desire to provide their own transportation and keep their child who's an 8th grader or a 5th grader in their current school. So families that are interested in that process should just go ahead and visit our enrollment website to learn more about what that process looks like. I'm also available. People have my email address. I'm happy to answer any questions and help guide families through that process as well. There are implications for that. We might not see that'll be more of a steady change year after year versus the drastic change that we might see next year as originally proposed. Again, the grandfathering piece, I've addressed that for those rising 5th grader or 8th grade students who wish to stay in their home school. We want to respect that, and we will open up that IDLC process to those families so long as they can provide their own transportation. So trends in survey feedback, we did receive over 240 responses. I got a little nervous there for a while because I had like 8 responses for like 3 weeks, and I'm like, oh, this is not the Washington Township I know. So I want to give kudos to our school leaders who really helped me get the word out to our families. And I did see that obviously we saw a significant increase, which is what we want. That's why we welcome the feedback. I tried to analyze that feedback based on themes. And so themes meaning that these are comments that were duplicated multiple times throughout the survey feedback. So I'll talk through that. We did receive the majority of that feedback from Willow Lake, followed by Eastwood, followed by Northview Middle Schools. And they carried 90% of that 240. And some of the concerns from the Willow Lake Elementary School, some of those echoed here this evening. Splintering of neighborhoods rezoned to Greenbrier. So what does that mean? That means, yes, if I'm in a neighborhood right now that's been rezoned to Greenbrier, there are students that are in the DLI programming at Willow Lake who will get transportation to return to Willow Lake. While also you'll have families in the same neighborhood that are rezoned to Greenbrier where their students will get picked up by a Greenbrier bus and brought to Greenbrier. That is the nature of this proposal. But again, that was to accommodate the fact that we wanted those dual language immersion students not to have such a drastic change to their academic programming due to the model. Incoming siblings in dual language immersion at Willow Lake Elementary School. So what if I have an incoming kindergartner next year? We can accommodate, because this starts next year, we will be able to accommodate an incoming kindergartner, but as those current students graduate out, we cannot sustain that long term. The only exception to that would be if we increase our fleet somehow to where we get buses at full capacity and we're able to accommodate that. We haven't been able to do that for 4 or 5 years, so I don't anticipate that. DLI articulation into West Lane and those who live in Northview boundaries. So if I am going to stay and finish DLI programming at Willow Lake, but I'm now going to Northview instead of West Lane, what do I do then? Are you going to provide transportation to DLI programming at West Lane? We are not able to do that. So they would have to apply for in-district limited choice and provide their own transportation to continue DLI at West Lane Middle School based on this recommendation. The other thing we heard was Willow Lake would be losing supportive and active PTO parents at Willow Lake Elementary School. So that was feedback that was endorsed. Grandfathering or exemption for incoming 5th grade students, we addressed that. We heard about equitable support in schools. So what does that mean? An example, so Greenbrier, let's say they see a significant increase in multilingual learners. Would we adjust our staffing to bring on or reallocate resources to bring on more ENL supports for Greenbrier? Absolutely, that's something we would look at. There was also a concern for overcrowding now at Greenbrier. I can tell you that Greenbrier right now is low 500s. That is less than 2 miles away from a school that's over 750 students. So in our proposal, even once all 100 students move on, you're looking at Greenbrier and Willow Lake being of similar size. So I think this was a person or some people that were thinking Greenbrier is going to go to 750 because of that geographic zone that's now going there. And right now, based on what we see, and again, that's current numbers, we don't anticipate Greenbrier being overcrowded anytime soon. Now, are we able to accurately forecast the future of enrollment in the district? That's very hard to do. We're seeing that right now with the changes that we're experiencing. So there's no guarantees that Greenbrier 3 or 4 years from now might be larger and we might have to relook at this. Nobody wants to do that, but that's unfortunately what we have to do. Concerns from the middle school perspective. The main concern from middle schools that we heard was just the whole exemption for incoming 8th grade students was the desire, can they stay at their home school? And we've addressed that based on our latest data analysis with our Transpar partners. And then we heard an increase in non-resident students and how this is impacting this recommendation. Yes, we've seen an increase in our non-resident students throughout the district. But in this case, we are looking at enrollment increases at all levels. Currently, right now, our strongest growth in the district is at the elementary level, not the middle school level. We have seen non-resident increase of a few hundred students, but that is, as you go back to our whys, that's not why we're doing these rezoning pieces. Because that is a faucet that you essentially can turn on and off. And we are going to have to turn it off with certain schools that we've talked about in this rezoning proposal. So that's the trends in the survey feedback that we've received thus far. And then there's a website that we created to keep our community informed on an enrollment management proposal for next school year. We also added specific neighborhood impact analysis for next school year in there that families have been able to access. And we'll continue to update those with current changes relative to tonight's discussion and ongoing feedback. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have relative to this proposal.
Mrs. Horth Krueger?
Just this one's a quick one. How much longer will the survey be out there for people to take advantage of?
Survey will remain open until we come to the recommendation in December.
Okay.
December 11th.
Other questions? Go ahead.
First question, and I'm actually just asking you to share. But I want the community to be aware at this enrollment management, we didn't just look at, kind of rezoning. And so I'm asking you, can you please share a little bit about what we looked at in terms of work zones and where we landed on that? I just want the community to be aware that there was a lot of pressure from different places in the district to do transportation exclusion zones.
Yeah.
And that is not part of the recommendation. I'll sort of show my hand and say I'm glad it's not part of the recommendation, but I do think it's important because look, whatever happens with this, it's gonna be painful, right? I do want the public to understand that we looked at something also that could have been really. You just share some things.
Yeah, so with our partners in Transpar, we did do a walk zone analysis where we felt there was opportunity for us to do so safely. So we looked at places that were right across the street from their school that had adequate sidewalks and infrastructure supports in place that would allow for up to a mile for elementary, or it was, I'm sorry, half a mile for elementary, 3/4 of a mile, and then a mile for high school. And we found a number of spots around Greenbrier, especially around Nora area, and some others where there was an opportunity for us to really improve our routing because we were going to be able to eliminate some routes. So the pressure on the transportation system right now with 88 drivers, we could use some of that relief, but there was not an appetite by the committee, that enrollment management task force. There was not an appetite for that committee to do that. There was concerns about students at elementary age walking in the dark. There was concerns about kindergartners, when a parent maybe doesn't walk across the street to get them from school. What happens then? Are our staff having to walk students across streets? All of that. So that wasn't an analysis that our partners in Transpar, that's what they do for a lot of districts, is they do safe walk zone analyses. But again, there just wasn't an appetite for that at this point in time, just by the committee, basically.
I just wanted the committee to be clear that there were things the committee looked at that probably would have been unpopular, that nobody ever saw, right? And so I just want people to kind of know that, we did look at some other things and say, you know what, this just isn't community, so they never made it. Yes. And to the public. So thank you for that. My next question is, I think I know the answer just based on statistics, but we're going to be losing ultimately 51 students from Willow Creek. So just based on math, right? That's like 6% of the population. So I'm assuming that any impact on the overall socioeconomic mix, essentially the percentage of free and reduced lunch is nil. But have you looked at, is that going to have a significant impact on making that school more disproportionate in terms of?
No, it's a great question, and I did echo that and meant to bring that up in the conversation about equitable support in schools. First of all, Greenbrier currently has a higher percentage of students who qualify for free and reduced lunch than Willow Lake does. But it's close, and it will remain relatively close. Do I think Willow Lake in this proposal could become higher, have a higher percentage of students who qualify? Yes, potentially they could. Not by much, but they could. I will also say I did share some feedback that this is Willow Lake losing some very stable homes, and the potential impact of that. Right now, if you look at Willow Lake, they are fed by 6 single-family, basically neighborhoods, and 6 apartment communities. With this proposal, they moved to 3 single-family neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods, and 4 apartment communities with that proposed change. So that is the nature of that. But the reason why we kind of sliced the pie the way we did was had a lot to do with transportation and the impact of routing efficiencies and all that to maintain those on-time arrivals, et cetera. So yeah, I did look at that, but I don't see it as being a significant impact or change to where all of a sudden Willow Lake a few years from now is going to be significantly higher than a Greenbrier in terms of free and reduced lunch status.
And then I have one more question for you. And I'm just gonna, this is the hard one. It's a really hard one. And I'll be honest, because and for the community who's here, as you already gathered, I was actually on the steering committee, so I'm very familiar with this. And so I'm going to share what I'm personally struggling with the most. And so I want to know your answer. And I want to think about, so I think, okay, people with current 7th graders probably just heard what they wanted to hear, at least to be able to do it. But if I'm talking to a community member like one who spoke tonight, who has a current 6th grader, it's like, yeah, it's 6th grade, they'll be in 7th grade next year. If that person says to me, Dr. Taylor, currently at Northview, there are other 6th graders who live in Meridian, and they were allowed to choose to come. You're not going to make them leave next year. So why are you going to make me? Well, it's a really hard question, but how do you answer that?
Yeah, it is a hard question, and I totally respect the question. I think for me, it boils down to going back to our whys, and are we correcting the challenges that were set out to correct? I totally get that, and I'm happy to go back and dive in and see if there's a possibility for that. Just at this point in time in our review of that, it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't change counts in our schools if we don't really do what we said we're going to do with regard to improving capacity at Northview with those proposed changes.
I'm sorry, I said it was my last question. I'm asking a
Chris, I'm
follow-up.
sorry, can you move your mic
Yeah.
closer?
I'm going to ask you a follow-up because it just occurred to me. I'm going to put you on the spot. And if the answer is I don't know, that's fine. If I am a current Northview sixth grade parent and I'm looking at my kid having to move next year in seventh grade, can you sit here today and can you promise me that there will be no new out of district seventh graders at Northview next year?
I will tell you that we've had conversations about freezes on non-residency at Northview.
I'll tell you that could make it a lot more palatable to me as a board member.
We've also had conversation about freezes at Clearwater. We've also had conversations about freezes at Willow Lake.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mrs. George Davis or Mr. Fensel?
I have no questions at this time.
No questions, Bill. Thank you.
I think to put some more context to it, sorry, not to prolong this. Right now, I think it's important to know that currently at Willow Lake Elementary School, there are 6 sections of kindergarten students with 24 students apiece in those. At Willow Lake, you cannot sustain 6 sections K-5. Eventually, those 6 sections have to turn into 5 sections of 29 students. Okay? Currently at Greenbrier, there are 4 sections of 24 students apiece. So I get this is hard. I totally get this is hard, but it's also hard for me to say it's okay for us to have a school that is building classrooms and closets or having to do that, having to add sections, having to add teachers, and then eventually they run out of room to add teachers, and then we're merging into smaller sections, which is increasing class sizes, when I have a school less than 2 miles away that has 4 sections compared to a school that has 6 sections. And I know that's hard, but that is the way I look at this. Because you could look at this and say, hey, let's just wait and see if those numbers will stabilize across the district. But I would hate to be coming back here next fall or next spring or whenever and saying that Willow Lake is now at 770. And we're adding sections and we have nowhere to put them. So that's my concern, is the long-term impact of us maintaining a status quo right now.
Live back in the pre-referendum.
So, Dr. Taylor, thank you. And before you go away, just, I understand and Mrs. Fry has done talked a lot about the process behind the scenes on coming to this recommendation. One of the things I think is, as you talk to board members, whether it's in the state, whether it's across the country, other than COVID, rezoning, and if you have to go for money from the community to do things at your school, are the toughest conversations to have. So I totally understand it, but I do appreciate the work that was behind the scenes to try to come up with it. So we'll look forward to what you come to the board with on your recommendations. Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry. One last comment. It's not
Right.
even a question, it's just a comment.
Before I drop the gavel, go ahead.
It's a helpful comment. I went and looked up nationally and statewide, like how often do this redistrict happen? Because I know it's just, and both in Indiana and across the country, it's every 5 to 10 years. It's painful inevitability, but I did want to share, because I went and looked that up, that we are not off track in terms of
Yeah, 17, 18 last time we went.
So thank you. And before I ask for adjournment, I will like to say, I'll take the privilege here to say congratulations to Mrs. Horth Kruger and Mrs. George Davis for being reelected over this past election. Obviously, you guys showed up at the polls and voted for yourself, so that's good. And in January, we'll welcome our new board members, Mr. Stephen Thompson. Anything else for the good order? Now entertain a motion.
Second.
Doctor, I've promoted you. Mrs. George Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Fensel,
Aye.
Ms. Fry, Ms. Horst Kruger,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Meeting is adjourned.